Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. I'm in Naruto. Double package at the start. Chapter 141. Pata Pata Pata. Zhaojian led the team into the country of rain. Everyone's footsteps became louder and louder. It is different from the arid desert area of the country of wind. In the country of rain, where it rains all year round, the ground is covered with wet water stains. There is something wrong with the magnetic field in the country of rain. Zhaojian, running in front of the team, muttered secretly in his heart. I don't know if it's because of consuming thunder fruit. Since entering the country of rain, he has clearly felt that this place is different from other places. There seems to be a weird magnetic field permeating the surrounding area, which has caused cumulus clouds and rainfall throughout the year. And the thick black clouds in the sky are full of countless violent lightning factors, as if he can pull the lightning down as long as he beckons. This reminded Zhaojian of Enel's two big moves, Lei Ying and Wan Lei. Lord Zhaojian, 5 kilometers ahead, there is a brigade of 2,000 people. Just when Zhaojian fell into deep thought, a perception ninja rushed up from behind. Understood. After returning, Zhaojian nodded. Then opened the eyes of Kagura's heart, and his perception quickly radiated out. In just 2 breaths, the team of more than 2,000 people in front was also imprinted in Zhaojian's mind. The leader is standing on top of a giant Sancho fish. There is no doubt that he is the leader of Rain Shinobi Village, Hanzo of the Salamander. I didn't expect Hanzo, he really came. Zhaojian muttered a weird expression. Before, I said in my heart that if you meet Hanzo of the Salamander, let him see how good he is. Unexpectedly, July came so quickly. Master Zhaojian, nothing will happen, right? A group of Konoha Jonin who were 2 steps behind Zhaojian, after hearing Zhaojian's muttering, they all asked with some concern. After all, Hanzo of the Salamander, but known as the existence of a demigod. The strength is in the ninja world at this time, and that is also the top handful of strong people. No problem. If Hanzo really wants to lead the army to intercept, then you will all retreat. I can stop them all by myself. Feeling the aspirations of the people behind him, Zhaojian smiled and comforted. At this moment, he is not talking big words. In the strange magnetic field of this rain country, Zhaojian and the thunderclouds in the sky had an inexplicable resonance. If he wants, he can throw the big move directly from the sky at any time. That's good. That's good. Hearing Zhaojian's words, the Jonin commanders all put their hearts back in their stomachs. Zhaojian is very confident at this time, and the whole body exudes convincing charm. For a while, Kushina, who was also behind Zhaojian, became slightly obsessed. At a distance of 5 kilometers, the speed of the crowd did not decrease. In less than 10 minutes, they arrived in front of the Rain Shinobi Brigade. Boom, come and stop. Just after the distance between the 2 sides approached, a handful of kuna carrying a detonating talisman was shot from the head of a Sancho fish by Hanzo. The flames of the explosion instantly lit up in front of the Konoha team. And Zhaojian was also at this moment, raising his right hand to stop the team. Illustration. Because the rain curtain was really too big, it was only when the 2 sides got close to each other tens of meters at this time that they could vaguely see the other side's appearance. Konoha Shinobi. After seeing Zhaojian and others' clothes and forehead protector, Hanzo was a little confused for a while. Because he had never thought that coming from the Kingdom of Wind would actually be the team of Konoha Shinobi. Lu Ju, you can negotiate first. Zhaojian glanced at Hanzo, who was full of question marks. Then he turned his head and shouted at Lu Ju behind him. There is this kind of the resourceful general in the team. Yes. Hearing Zhaojian's call, Nara did not postpone it for a long time. He strode straight behind him and walked straight forward. Hanzo-sama, we are Konoha's frontline troops. Because of the tight time, I want to borrow your national treasure to pass. I hope you can make it convenient. Nara deer walked a long distance forward to make sure that the sound could be conveyed in the rain, then stopped on the ground and shouted loudly. Although there are some meanings of soliciting, the voice is neither humble nor overbearing, and there is no smell of begging. It neither appears strong nor weak. The scale is just right. Passing. Are you guys fighting with Iwagakure, frontline troops? After Lujo's voice reached Hanzo's ears, Hanzo suddenly asked with a puzzled expression on his face. It seems that at this time, only this answer seems more reasonable. Yes, Iwagakure has signed the defeat treaty. So now, we want to borrow precious treasures to go to the battlefield of Iwagakure. Naruto answered bluntly. The information will probably spread in less than 2 days, so there is no need to conceal it. What Iwagakure has been defeated, Hanzo exclaimed. The face behind the gas mask was filled with consternation. Although this war reigned shinobi village, there is no plan to participate in 383. But Iwagakure's defeat so quickly made him a little unbelievable for a while. After all, Iwagakure and Konoha belong to one of the 5 big countries. The strength shouldn't be, there is such a big disparity. Yes, that's why we came from the country of wind and want to borrow precious treasures to pass. After Naruto nodded in response, she emphasized her purpose again. Hearing what he said, Hanzo stood on top of Sanshoyu's head and was silent for a while before he said. During the war, Konoha wanted to walk through the country of rain. This really made the old man a little embarrassed. Well, let your coach come out and see him. By the way, let him and the old man have a match. If he can go through 20 tricks under the old man, then the old man will let you pass from now on. Hanzo of the Salamander pretended to ask, then said slowly. In fact, it is the same as Luju said before. Rain Shinobi Village does not dare to stop Konoha at all now. As for the discussion, it is just an excuse to save face. To save people chewing their tongues behind their backs, and say Konoha wants you to make way, you just make way for others. This is a symbolic block. Even if Konoha's coach is really bad, Hanzo will make him survive 20 tricks. How about it? See what they are talking about. It was on Konoha's side, while talking with Rain Shinobi's side. Dozens of people are gathering here on a hill 100 meters away on the left. They are the original Akatsuki organization. I can't see clearly, the rain today is really too big. Nagato glared at Rinnegan, staring at both Rain Shinobi and Konoha for a long time, and then replied somewhat helplessly. Although his Rinnegan pupils are very powerful, his vision is much clearer than ordinary people. But Rinnegan doesn't have the ability of Byakugan to be farsighted. So he can only see the blurry figures on both sides. I hope that both of them will not fight each other as well. Hearing Nagato's words, Yahiko looked up to the sky, and his voice was full of compassion. In Yahiko's view, this country has always been in civil strife and can no longer bear redundant wars. Don't worry, Rain Shinobi Village will get better sooner or later. Conan turned his head to comfort Yahiko. She actually didn't know why she felt this way. Yes, we know the organization, but the goal is world peace. Yahiko, as the leader of Akatsuki, how can you be so compassionate and compassionate? If it is not possible, you will be the leader for me. Seeing Conan's voice, Hadosuke also laughed and teased Yahiko. This guy has been secretly in love with Conan ever since he joined the Akatsuki organization. So every time Conan speaks, he can't help but come out to brush up on his presence. Ha ha ha, if you want to be the new leader, you have to wait for me to die before you have a chance. According to my current physical fitness, you will be able to succeed as the new leader in about 80 years. Hearing Hadosuke teasing herself, Yahiko also laughed. And after Yahiko's words were finished, all the members of Akatsuki's organization also laughed. In fact, the group of them was here, and they were discovered by both Rain Shinobi and Konoha a long time ago, but neither of them paid attention to them. And in this war, Konoha did not fall into a real crisis. So Konoha did not, and sent the intelligence chief Danzo to the front line. Precisely because of this, Hanzo has not yet come into contact with Danzo, and has not been instigated by Danzo. Therefore, the current Hanzo does not regard Akatsuki as a thorn in the eye. I heard Hanzo's excuse to discuss with the coach. Naruto smiled for a long time and nodded. Then he turned from the front and retreated to the Konoha team. How are the negotiations? After Nara retired for a long time, Zhaojian hadn't spoken yet, and the Jonin commanders asked anxiously. Because the rain was too loud at this time, they did not hear clearly the content of their negotiations just now. Hanzo is willing to let us pass, but there is one condition. Naruto said with a smile. After I finished speaking, I deliberately sold it. Suddenly, all the Jonin commanders were anxious like ants on a hot pot. What are the conditions? Tell me. Yes, at this time, you don't want to hang our appetite, it's really anxious to death. Seeing Naradir's mystery for a long time, the Jonin commanders were all itchy with anger. Ha 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 ha, good, good, I said. But the other party said that our coach must be able to survive 20 under his hands. Illustration. Naraluju said with a smile, there was a bit of coconut in her voice. After his voice fell, the whole scene suddenly quieted down strangely. All that was left was the sound of pouring rain. After a while, everyone looked at Zhaojian, who was also a little weird. They couldn't know the strength of Zhaojian more clearly. That is definitely cage level, and it is very powerful cage level. But only need to be in the hands of the other party, supporting 20 strokes. Although they don't know how powerful Hanzo of the Salamander, who is known as a demigod, must be. But is this a bit too big? Ha 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 ha, I was underestimated. Zhaojian scratched his head and laughed. He probably already knew what Hanzo meant. But I don't know why, this feeling still makes Zhaojian a little unhappy. Ha 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 ha, Lord Zhaojian, for us, Konoha village, you must hold on to 20 tricks. At this moment, Kushina also laughed at Zhaojian suddenly. Everyone suddenly burst into laughter. Alright. I will definitely win honor for Konoha. Zhaojian followed Kushina's teasing and pretended to be a little pitiful. It immediately made everyone laugh happier. Papa papa. After amused, Zhaojian also turned and walked forward. Since Hanzo wants to make him hold 20 moves, let's make 20 moves. Zhaojian muttered a little funny in his heart. You are Konoha's coach. When Zhaojian walked closer, Hanzo frowned, his voice a little puzzled. Previously, Zhaojian was separated from him by tens of meters, and it was raining heavily. Although he knew what Zhaojian looked like, he couldn't see how old he was at all. At this moment, Zhaojian and Hanzo are only 10 meters away. Zhaojian's clear appearance also suddenly made Hanzo different. Because as a coach, Zhaojian's appearance is really too young. Come on, I will support good money, good 20 strokes. Zhaojian glanced at Hanzo on the head of the Sancho fish, and did not answer his question. After all, I have come up, is there any need to explain this kind of thing? Good. Seeing Zhaojian being so direct, Hanzo also kicked his legs and jumped directly from the head of the Sancho fish. From Hanzo's point of view, this is a process. So that Konoha's team just left by the way, so he naturally didn't pay much attention to it. Papa, come on, let the horse come here. After falling to the ground, Hanzo took out the chain sickle behind him, and then hooked his finger to Zhaojian to eat. Sky Kong Yunjian. Seeing Hanzo's appearance, Zhaojian was not welcome. He snorted in his heart, and drew his hands left and right in front of him. A dazzling lightsaber appeared in front of him in an instant, and he held it in his hand. Chong, boom, Zhaojian raised his hand and waved forward. A 20-meter-high golden slash, as if connecting heaven and earth. Towards Hanzo of the Salamander, he roared out violently. The country of rain has cumulus rain all year round, causing the light to be a little dark. Precisely because of this, after Zhaojian's unrivaled slash was swung, the entire sky and the earth were instantly illuminated by this dazzling golden new hit. Nani! The dazzling light and immense power instantly shocked Hanzo. Because he was very close to Zhaojian, it was obviously too late for Jian to use the body flicker technique at this time. So he didn't care about his identity as the leader of a village. He rolled directly to the next jump, and then escaped the oncoming slash. Puff! A burst of white smoke burst out. Just when Hanzo escaped the slash. The Sancho fish not far behind him was so scared that he instinctively used reverse summoning and ran back directly. Escape! And the rain shinobi army behind the Sancho fish. At this moment, he shouted with exhaustion. After a while, all rain shinobi jumped to the sides and dodged. Fortunately, because the breath of the Sancho fish is poisonous, the rain shinobi have been hanging far behind. This allowed them, with the buffer time of this distance, to avoid this dazzling new attack. Of course, in fact, the main reason they could avoid the slash was that Zhaojian deliberately slowed down the slash. Otherwise, even if someone can hide, it is impossible to hide all of them. Rumble! Successive golden slashes from the heavens and the earth soared straight across the gloomy sky of the country of rain. The ground in the middle of Rain Shinobi's army was also directly torn apart at this moment. A deep ditch, ruthlessly appeared in everyone's eyes. All Rain Shinobi's hearts were filled with fear and horror in an instant. No one is not pale, showing a ghostly appearance. Boom rumble. The slashing roar was 100 meters away, and then it gradually weakened and became smaller, and finally ACDA disappeared between the heaven and the earth. The noise caused by the slash stopped. The scene also came to a halt at this moment. There was only the sound of pouring rain around, and no one was speaking. Because everyone is growing their mouths, holding their breath unconsciously. Even the Konoha shinobi people behind Zhaojian were shocked by Zhaojian's actions. Because now, the two sides are not hostile. If someone was buried under Zhaojian's hands, then the scene must be difficult to control. Fortunately, Zhaojian suppressed his slashing speed, otherwise this wave of borrowing, it is estimated that there is a high probability that other contradictions will evolve. Hey, why did you fight all of a sudden? On the top of the hill where Akatsuki was on, after seeing Konoha shinobi's hands, Yahiko suddenly exclaimed. One is the worry that the country of rain will fall into war. Second, it was shocked by that dazzling slash. And the rest of the members of the Zongxiao organization, after witnessing the earth-shattering slash, almost all of them had their eyes protruding. A feeling that common sense has been broken is in everyone's hearts. When the slash was lit just now, the dazzling light also illuminated their location. It seems that that is the real light of daybreak. Yahiko, don't be nervous, Rain Shinobi did not fight back, it seems that war should not break out. Seeing Yahiko's expression very worried, the head quickly raised his hand and pressed it on his shoulder. Feel the comfort of good friends. Yahiko just relieved the inner tension. Hanzo glanced at the ditch more than 100 meters long. Turning his head to look at Zhaojian again, his tone condensed for a while. Although because he wears a gas mask, people can't see what his expression is now. But his eyes were trembling violently, undoubtedly telling others how shocked and horrified he is now in his heart. There are 19 tricks. Zhaojian grinned suddenly. Then stretched out the index finger of his left hand and pointed to the ground of Han's lower body. The dazzling light flickered on Zhaojian's fingertips. Seeing the golden light on Zhaojian's hand, Hanzo, who didn't know why, subconsciously quickly formed a seal. The speed was so fast that both hands became a phantom. Wrong shot of light. Call out. Just at the moment Hanzoyan was made. Zhaojian's hand also shot a laser suddenly. Boom. The laser shot at Hanzo's feet and instantly caused a photon explosion. When the aftermath and flames of the explosion collided with Hanzo, his body instantly collapsed and turned into a pool of water stains. At the very moment, Hanzo used the body flicker technique to escape from the scene. Hoo-hoo. Ninja without Muji. Hanzo, who appeared, gasped. I was also shocked, cold sweat all over. At this time, he had already opened a distance of 30 meters from Zhaojian. Oh, 2 tricks have already passed. Hanzo-sama, don't you choose to make a move? Just as the thoughts in Han Zhang's mind were turning fast, Zhaojian's exaggerated words also came over. This guy has such strength. No wonder, he can afford Konoha's coach. I'm so careless, old man. Hearing Zhaojian's somewhat shifting voice, Hanzo felt his teeth aching. Although Zhaojian has only made 2 shots, there is no doubt that he can already clearly feel that Zhaojian is a very tricky strong at the same level. And half of Hanzo's ability as a demigod actually depends on the poison gas of Sanshou fish. But at this moment, Sanjiao fish was also directly frightened back. But even if he was not frightened back, Hanzo did not dare to use its poison gas at will. Because now the battle between the two sides is just to learn from each other. Konoha village. It's really full of talents. Hanzo stared at Zhaojian for a long time. Then his face solemnly sighed in his heart. At this moment, he suddenly sounded, and he fought against him in World War II, and was given the title of Konoha Sannin by him. But compared with Konoha Sannin at that time, at this moment, the young man in front of him was simply too strong. Report your name, you deserve to be taken seriously by the old man. Looking at Zhaojian in the distance, Hanzo said in a solemn voice. At this time, he is no longer despised because Zhaojian is young. Instead, he treated Zhaojian as a strong person at the same level. Konoha Jonin, Baiyun Zhaojian. The faint answer came from Zhaojian's mouth, and his voice was rather helpless. Because I am always asked for my name, it is actually quite unpleasant. However, he believed that it would not take long for his name to spread throughout the ninja world. Baiyun Zhaojian, okay, the old man remembers you. Hanzo nodded solemnly, then took possession of Zhaojian and charged up. At this moment, he didn't dare to care about the battle at the same level, let Zhaojian do something first. Chain and sickle. Second shot. Hanzo held the back end of the chain with his left hand. The right hand swung the sickle like a windmill. He used this trick to defeat the 3 ships of the Iron Kingdom. What? After swiping the sickle to ultimate. With a sudden wave of his right hand, Hanzo directly threw the sickle toward Zhaojian. The speed was so fast that the sickle seemed to cut through the air. Clang! Zhaojian flicked the lightsaber in his right hand. He immediately knocked Hanzo's sickle into the air. Wow! At this moment, the sound of the chain swinging sounded. The sickle that was knocked into the air was suddenly used to Zhaojian again. Oh, can it still be used like this? Seeing the sickle that was knocked into the air by himself, but struck again from another direction, Zhaojian was also surprised. With this unexpected attack, it is estimated that a lot of careless people will be directly hit. Clang! Another sound of gold and iron crossed. Zhaojian waved the lightsaber again and knocked the sickle away. And this time, he shot the sickle directly towards Hanzo, who was rushing out. Hulala! The sound of swinging the chain sounded again. The chain hit Zhaojian directly. The sickle was also pulled by the chain and stopped in front of the half-hidden body. He grabbed it in his hand. Sure enough, every cage level expert has his own set. After twisting and avoiding the chain from the blow, Zhaojian couldn't help but sighed inwardly. This was the case for the Chio I met before, and the same was true for Hanzo at this time. Every cage-level powerhouse has his own very distinctive side. But sighing, Zhaojian didn't care at all. After all, he was almost invincible at this time. Seeing Hanzo rushing towards him holding a knife, Zhaojian didn't even bother to avoid it. Holding a lightsaber in one hand, he stood on the spot with such a fixed amount. Swordsmanship flashes. Seeing Zhaojian standing still, Hanzo frowned. Then suddenly there was an acceleration. He rushed directly to Zhaojian. The speed was so fast that a phantom was pulled out behind him. Clang! Nani! It was still the sound of a collision of gold and iron. Hanzo waved the sickle against Zhaojian's abdomen, and was easily blocked by a dazzling lightsaber. Is it really rare to use a sickle to draw a sword? Zhaojian's jokes of laughter sounded from Hanzo's bent head, and suddenly Hanzo's hairs were startled to stand up. What? Hanzo increased the strength of the sickle in his hand. Then while Zhaojian was also struggling to block, suddenly regaining his strength, he jumped backwards. The experience of fighting, in his hands, was fully expressed in Lingli. I hit you 2 strokes, and you returned my 2 strokes, now it's my turn again. Looking at Hanzo, who stopped back, Zhaojian smiled. After wiping the non-existent dust on the lightsaber with his left hand, Zhaojian stepped on the ground abruptly and shot Hanzo up. Before and after rushing to Hanzo, the lightsaber held high in Zhaojian's hand slashed directly at Hanzo. Clang! Nani is so heavy. The thought in Hanzo's mind just fell. In an instant, Zhaojian gave him a knife and he slashed out directly. No special techniques are used. In this blow, Zhaojian relied only on the brute force of the whirlpool physique. But even so, Hanzo, who was a little older, couldn't support it. Hanzo, who was smashed into the air, looked like a descent. After a few violent tumbling on the water-stained ground, it gradually stopped. Hanzo-sama, Master Chief, witnessed Hanzo being hit by Zhaojian. A burst of exclamation sounds immediately resounded from Rain Shinobi's army. Time passed by every second. But Hanzo still lay motionless on the ground. At this moment, even the Konoha shinobi cultivators had their hearts picked up. Hey, Hanzo-sama, don't touch me. Seeing Hanzo lying on the ground without moving for a long time, Zhaojian's speechless voice suddenly rang. He can clearly perceive that Han Zhangmao has nothing to do, at best it just scratched a bit of skin. How could such a strong person fall so easily? Ha ha ha. Let the old man tell you the sinister world. Just as Zhaojian's speechless voice fell, Hanzo's laughter gradually came out. In fact, he deliberately lay on the ground for so long, that is also of ulterior motives. At this moment, it has been done in secret. Rain Shinobi and Konoha Shinobi, After hearing Danzo's voice, they all breathed a sigh of relief. Fire-style detonating talisman flame array. Hanzo, rising from the ground, suddenly shouted. Then his palm slammed on the ground. At this time, the ground under Zhaojian's feet suddenly sank a bit. Countless detonating charms also burst out of the ground at this moment. Then he quickly climbed up along his legs. In just 2 breaths, Zhaojian's entire lower body was tightly wrapped by the detonation talisman. Talent. Ha 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 ha. It seems that he is still an old man, a little better. Seeing Zhaojian being wrapped in the detonation talisman, Hanzo burst out laughing. In his opinion, as long as he is willing at this moment, just hook the wire on the finger. Zhaojian can be fried to pieces in an instant. Ha ha ha. It's our Hanzo-sama who won. Isn't it? I have never seen anyone who can survive the technique of Master Hanzo. After Rain Shinobi saw Zhaojian wrapped in a detonating charm, they also had a joyful discussion. The haze that Hanzo was slashing away just now was swept away from their hearts in an instant. Are you thinking too much? Looking at Hanzo, who was smug, Zhaojian, 387, also laughed. If he wanted to avoid it just now, before the detonation talisman got up, he could speed up and avoid it. As for why, what did not do? It's just that he feels that there is really no need for it. What do you mean? It's all like this, don't you admit defeat? Hearing Zhaojian's laughter, Hanzo frowned. Then he raised his hand and gestured, pointing to the steel wire on his head. Look at the men behind you. Then you are looking at the men behind me. Zhaojian did not explain to Hanzo, but instead smiled with a pointed smile. Hearing Zhaojian's headless words, Hanzo also frowned suspiciously, turning his head and looking back. I saw the Rain Shinobi on my side, they all looked happy. Is this okay? I won, shouldn't my subordinates be happy? Hanzo, who couldn't figure it out, turned his head again. Then he looked at the army on Konoha's side. All the people who saw Konoha looked calm and calm. Quote, question mark, question mark, question mark. Quote, what exactly is going on? Do you Konoha all want you to die? Hanzo turned his gaze to Zhaojian, with suspicious expressions on his face. Because the performance of Konoha's army really seemed too calm and calm. Just let me tell you. Why are they so calm? Zhaojian snorted. Then, under Hanzo's puzzled eyes, bend down directly and grab the wire connected to Hanzo's hand. Hey, what are you doing? Hanzo was taken aback by Zhaojian's behavior. At this moment, the brow twitched violently. Although he trapped Zhaojian with this technique. But he didn't have any plans to kill the other party. After all, Zhaojian is Konoha's frontline coach. If he dies in his hands, then it is very likely that it will trigger a war between the two sides. Zhaojian ignored Hanzo's twitching face. Rather, it just tore off the steel wire connected to the detonating talisman. As if the lead was ignited. On the detonation talisman, a flame was instantly set off. Zhaojian, who straightened his body, violently contracted Hanzo towards his eyes, and showed an unexplained smile. At this time, a violent explosion suddenly resounded. Boom 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 boom. The flames and smoke instantly drowned Zhaojian under Hanzo's horrified gaze. The explosion continued to explode continuously, and it lasted more than 10 seconds. At the center of the explosion, Zhaojian was completely invisible. The flames and smoke from the explosion spread to a few meters around him. The line of sight has long been completely blocked. Hulala, hulala. The noise and discussion sounded through Rain Shinobi's team. Everyone was confused by Zhaojian's actions. I don't understand why he committed suicide. Some people even doubted in their hearts. Is this something Konoha deliberately designed to start a war? Hanzo's eyes stared at the center of the explosion. At this moment, the center of the eyebrows frowned directly into the word, Chuan. But at this moment, he suddenly felt a strong feeling that Zhaojian was not dead. Because the smile he showed at the end was full of foolishness and self-confidence, and did not show the slightest sign of death. After the explosion stopped completely, the vision in the field was still very unclear. Because of the continuous explosion for half a minute, too much smoke was caused. Papa, papa, papa. Just as everyone held their breath and stared at the fading smoke, a golden light flashed in the smoke. Then the sound of footsteps on the ground gradually came out. Whir. Just when everyone is attentive. Suddenly a gust of wind blew up in the heavy rain. In an instant, the smoke was blown away completely. The situation in the explosion center was also clear, and everyone's eyes were caught. Zhaojian was spotless all over his body, slowly walking out of the big pit formed by the explosion. Nani, unscathed. What happened just now? Excited and doubtful voices sounded one after another in Rain Shinobi's army. Hanzo also looked horrified and inexplicable, his eyes widened. At this moment, he has no idea what happened in this situation. But when he turned his gaze to Konoha's army, he saw that everyone looked like this should be. Obviously, they all knew what was going on. Now I know why I said you think too much, because this kind of attack is useless to me. After stepping out of the explosion hole, Zhaojian looked directly at Hanzo and said with a dizzy voice. At this moment, Hanzo's eyes were still trembling, which made him feel especially comfortable. You are the old guy who has started to go downhill. It's not a shame to say that I want me to support 20 moves under your hands. Call, what is the problem? After taking a few deep breaths, Hanzo asked suspiciously. At this moment, he almost wanted to break his head. However, he did not expect how Zhaojian would be safe and sound, even unharmed, without the slightest defense. Ordinary attacks are not effective to me. Zhaojian spread his hands and said with a slow smile. This time he is not hiding it. There is no need to conceal it. Because we waited until the news of Sunagakure's defeat came. Information about him will also be transmitted from Sunagakure. The information that he is immune to physical attacks must not be concealed. Normal attacks are invalid. Here's Zhaojian's explanation. The doubt on Hanzo's face is not reduced by half. After all, he hadn't seen it with his own eyes. Zhaojian was very elemental. Therefore, he naturally didn't know how it was invalid. Moreover, the detonation talisman continued to explode for nearly 10 seconds. Is this still a normal attack? Seeing that Hanzo was still confused, Zhaojian didn't bother to explain it to him now. Because only a few days later, he will naturally know it clearly. Now, do you still need to go through 20 tricks? Zhaojian said, interrupting Hanzo who was lost in thought. If Hanzo still says that if you need to finish 20 strokes, Zhaojian is going to finish it immediately. After all, on the front line of the battlefield, time does not wait for anyone. In this country of rain, it has been resting long enough. Hearing Zhaojian's words, Hanzo came back to his senses. Looking up at Zhaojian, after thinking for a few breaths, Danzo slowly said. Since you are so anxious, then this discussion will end here. Although the old man has not used his full strength, the old man has recognized your strength. Danzo is not actually talking big. Although he did because of his age, his strength began to gradually enter a decline stage. But he did have many methods that he did not use. For example, if he summoned the Sancho fish again, there was a deadly poisonous mist in his own body. But these are the tactics that he will only use when he fights. In that case, thank you very much. After hearing Hanzo's answer, Zhaojian also nodded. It's right that Hanzo didn't use all his strength. But who said that he did his best? If the two sides are really fighting for their lives at this time, Zhaojian is even confident that he can kill Hanzo in a short time. Because Hanzo at this time has no knowledge of Zhaojian's various abilities. It is not impossible to kill him directly by surprise. Everyone, keep going. Turning around, Zhaojian shouted aloud to the men behind him. The original majestic rain, I don't know when, it gradually turned into a drizzle. So the sound spread out very clearly at this moment. Even the line of sight became clear at this time. The whole army keep on marching. After receiving Zhaojian's order, the Jonin commanders also shouted to the large group behind them. Papa papa papa. The sound of footsteps on the ground gradually sounded. Konoha's army also started to move again. After the team approached Zhaojian, Zhaojian nodded again to Hanzo and thanked him. Then directly led the team and ran towards Rain Shinobi's army in strides. At this moment, Hanzo raised his right hand and made a parting gesture. At this time, Rain Shinobi's army quickly moved to the sides, giving way to a wide road. And beside the road, there is a deep ditch. That was Zhaojian's previous slash, which destroyed the ground. Ding! Congratulations to the master, I have won the admiration of 1125 people, and the prestige value increased by 1125 points. Open black lens bracket ding. 985 people have a fear of the owner, and the prestige value increases by 985 point. Zhaojian led the Konoha people through Rain Shinobi's army. All Rain Shinobi also saw the appearance of Zhaojian clearly at this moment. In a moment, Zhaojian gained another wave of prestige like mosquito legs. As for the Konoha shinobi who followed Zhaojian, all their heads were raised in excitement at this time. Just a few dozen breaths. Under the leadership of Zhaojian, Konoha's team disappeared in the distant rain curtain. Hanzo-sama, Hanzo-sama. After watching Konoha disappear, a group of Jonin from Rain Shinobi also came to Hanzo. Sanshou fish is not there at the moment, so there is no poisonous gas here now. Konoha village is really full of talented people, you can't underestimate it. Hanzo was also there, watching Konoha's team leave. Thinking of the few short encounters with Zhaojian before, Hanzo couldn't help but sigh again. Although I said before, I didn't exert all my strength. But in fact, only he knows that even if he exerts his full strength, he is not sure that he can beat the opponent. Glancing at the deep ditch on the ground, Hanzo's heart couldn't help trembling slightly again. He used to cross the country of iron, and in that country full of warriors, he had never seen such a terrifying slash. And Hanzo still felt that with this slash, the opponent should have deliberately released the water. Otherwise, whether his summoning beast can run away is really a matter of two. Let's go back to the village first. Suppress the tumbling thoughts in my heart. Hanzo turned around first and ran out to the right. A crowd of Rain Shinobi's Jonin commanders also shouted and ordered the team to return to the village. Then he speeded up and kept up with Hanzo's footsteps. Fortunately, there was no fight. Seeing that there was no war between the two sides, Yahiko also breathed a sigh of relief. On the top of the hill on the left, members of the awareness organization are still staying on the spot at the moment. They were also here, watching Konoha's army all leave. The conductor of Konoha. In terms of age, it doesn't seem to be much older than us. At this moment, Nagato spoke slowly. Before he could not see what the other party looked like. But since the rain became smaller, his pupil strength could clearly see the opponent's appearance. Estimated with Nagato's visual inspection. The age of the other party. It will never be more than 5 years old or older than oneself and others. What? Age is not much different from us. Hearing Nagato's words, the members of the awareness organization were all stunned at the scene. I saw the opponent and Hanzo fought so fiercely before. So they all naturally think that the other party should be at least one person who is running to the third or even the fourth age. After all, the opponent is standing at the front of the team, and his identity should be a Konoha commander. But what no one thought was that the age of the other party was actually the same as that of the others. When Konoha's army passes through the country of rain. When entering the country of grass. The sky was already dark, and it began to darken. So Zhaojian gave an order. The army was ordered to camp overnight on the spot. At this time, after nearly 2 days of marching at full speed. The Konoha team is only close to the battlefield of Iwagakure, less than a day's journey. As the distance to the battlefield gets closer and closer, the mood of the Konoha people is getting heavier. Because they defeated Sand Shinobi. But who can guarantee that they can beat Rock Shinobi again? Can it even survive the war? No one dared to guarantee that. Even Zhaojian at this time did not dare to say such big words. After all, there are always places in the Chaos Army that he can't take care of. When the sky is completely dark, a temporary Konoha camp was built. In the center of the camp, inside a tent, Zhaojian and Kushina are sitting opposite each other at the moment. It's so simple. Zhaojian stared at Kushina dumbfounded, his tone a little unbelievable. At this time, he is consulting Kushina to learn adamantine sealing chains. Yes, it was originally that simple. If your Uzumaki bloodline is pure enough and chakra is large enough, this technique will not be difficult to perform. Looking at Zhaojian with a dazed expression, Kushina couldn't help covering her mouth and laughing. That's okay, then you can teach me how to make a seal. After getting Kushina's confirmation again, Zhaojian couldn't wait to get up. At this time, it was the dead of night, and the two were alone together again, so Zhaojian also thought differently. But this place is the center of the faction. If you want to do what you love to do, you have to open a barrier. Okay, Kushina didn't know Zhaojian's thoughts. So Shinrin truthfully and earnestly taught. A few minutes passed in a flash. Kushina explained the knot printing method and several usages of adamantine sealing chains in detail. And Zhaojian once again learned more about adamantine sealing chains. Don't say anything else. Just the enchantment has several different uses. There are those who focus on defense. There are people who focus on blocking the line of sight. There are also cases where the sight and sound are blocked together. There is also the enchantment that Kushina used before, that can see the outside from the inside, but cannot enter from the outside. The various enchantment effects have refreshed Zhaojian's new understanding of adamantine sealing chains. Good. Then next, let me try it. Zhaojian gave Kushina an unexplained smile. Then both hands began to slowly release according to the jian she had taught before. Adamantine sealing chains. After printing, Zhaojian snorted inwardly. Immediately afterwards, there was a burst of dazzling brilliance on his back. Illustration. Several chains condensed by chakra suddenly burst out of his back at this time. Because this is the first time he has used adamantine sealing chains. So the chains seem to be a bit too solid. It seems to be transparent. However, as Zhaojian gradually increased chakra delivery, the chain quickly became more and more solid. It's done. Seeing this scene, Zhaojian was overjoyed. As soon as his thoughts moved, the chains began to wave in the air according to his thoughts. Adamantine sealing chains. Enchantment. Puff, puff, puff. Slightly familiar with the use of adamantine sealing chains, Zhaojian patted with both hands. The chain broke away from his back in an instant, and a hemispherical barrier was instantly enveloped in the tent. The chain is the skeleton of this enchantment. It was the moment the barrier was completed. The surrounding movement suddenly became quiet. The wind outside the tent disappeared. The sounds of various mosquitoes and the footsteps of the patrol team suddenly stopped at this moment. Because this is a barrier that blocks sight and sound. I'll just talk about a technique, it's not that difficult, right? Kushina looked around, then smiled at Zhaojian. Just when she turned her head, a figure rushed towards her like a hungry wolf. What? Unknown, Kushina suddenly exclaimed. The next day, when the light of daybreak illuminates the earth again, Zhaojian stretched lazily, and gradually recovered. Looking down at the beautiful woman in her arms, Zhaojian shook his head and smiled. A blanket was taken out of the system and covered her body. Then Zhaojian thought, and removed the enchantment that had been opened for a night. The sound of insects and birds screamed into the silent tent in an instant. After a short while, Kushina also slowly woke up. Lord Zhaojian, Master Zhaojian. After getting dressed, Zhaojian and Kushina walked out of the tent. I saw many Konoha shinobi who had already risen early, and they were dismantling their tents at this moment. Yeah, hard. Zhaojian, who was in a good mood, nodded and smiled in response. After a while, the Konoha shinobi who said hello felt flattered for a while. Good money, Zhao. Not too long. The sky in the east gradually began to glow. At this moment, the Konoha army has also completely cleaned up the camp. After the team regrouped to one place, Zhaojian waved his hand. Pata pata pata. The familiar footsteps gradually sounded on the island. The army once again drew towards the battlefield of Iwagakure. But at this time, Kushina used the bamboo dragonfly again. Because she had been yawning all the time, it was obvious that she did not sleep well last night. Papa papa. There were bursts of rapid footsteps, and the sound rang out one after another. The Konoha army led by Zhaojian finally crossed the country of grass and entered the border of the country of fire. At this moment, the time has come to the sun and began to shift to the west. Moreover, there is not much distance from the front line that Sarutobi Hiruzen said before. Hey Luju, from now on, the team will be under your full command for the time being. Zhaojian, who was running at the front of the team, suddenly opened his eyes, then turned his head and ordered Luju behind him. Just now, he felt it through the eyes of Kagura's heart. A fierce battle is taking place about 40 kilometers ahead. And the side who is defending hard is undoubtedly Konoha's defenders. It's Lord Zhaojian. Hearing Zhaojian's order, Nara Luju seriously responded. They also learned about Zhaojian's range of perception skills from Shiri Junhong before. So he guessed that Zhaojian should have sensed the frontline war. Although Nara Luji is most afraid of trouble. But such a critical period of war. Naturally, he would not shirk the orders issued by the superiors. Nashin, you also follow the big army, come from the rear together. Seeing Naruto nodded in response to the order, Zhaojian turned to Kushina and confessed. Understood. Kushina responded seriously as well. She had already come down from the bamboo dragonfly. At this moment, they are also running behind Zhaojian with a group of Konoha Jonin. After receiving Kushina's answer, Zhaojian turned his head to the front of the team again. Crack, click, click, click. There was a very slight turning sound. The moment Zhaojian turned his head, directly broke the squid mother's hand and slid to the bottom. The weight of his body was also reduced to a minimum in an instant. Because the ability of fruit teleportation has not been developed yet, so Zhaojian's fastest speed at the moment still has to take advantage of the cuttlefish girl's bracelet. Boom! Zhaojian, who was running, stepped on the ground vigorously. The sound of breaking through the air suddenly sounded, and his figure shot towards the sky in front of him instantly. The speed is so fast, when a group of Konoha Jonin reacted. Zhaojian has directly broken through the sound barrier and appeared hundreds of meters away. So fast, Konoha Jonin who reacted, all instinctively exclaimed. After the physique is adjusted to the lightest level, it is actually very difficult to control the inertia brought by speed. Because of this, Zhaojian only used his extreme speed once in the war with Sand Shinobi. That's when Kushina and others seized Ebizo. At that time, none of these Konoha Jonin had come to Kikyo Castle yet. So naturally they have never seen Zhaojian's speed like breaking through the sound barrier. In the entire Jonin team, only Kushina, who had seen Zhaojian's speed, had no change in her face. Illustration. Boom, boom, rumble. In a rectangular trench, hundreds of Konoha shinobi were hiding by the trench. Crushed rocks and rocks in the sky, from the outer air, hit them like raindrops. For a time, all Konoha shinobi, they were all crushed under the trench and couldn't lift their heads. Everyone, hold on all for me. The information has been sent back to the village for 5 days, and support will come tomorrow at the latest. As the commander-in-chief, Mimura Hamaki raised his head and shouted loudly. The sound spread throughout the trench. The situation at this time is very critical. The morale of Konoha shinobi is also very low. Therefore, as a commander, he can only continue to cheer up his companions. ACDA, strike back. Strike back. Just when the gravel and rocks were somewhat reduced, Mimura Hamaki quickly got up and looked out. I saw countless rock shinobi who rushed up like an ant moving quickly. Suddenly, he shouted to the comrades who were still avoiding. When ordered by the commander, Konoha shinobi also watched. So they saw it again. Rock shinobi who are suppressed by a large number of people. Boom! Countless ninjutsu and detonating talisman shuriken, all smashed outwards. The violent blasting sound continued to ring out of the trench. However, the total number of Iwagakure is as large as 8,000. Although I don't know, why didn't they swarm all over? But even with only 2/10 of people, it is not the Konoha shinobi at this time who can resist it. So soon, Iwagakure's ninja rushed into Konoha's trench. The battle suddenly broke out in the trench. I have already said that I will follow my instructions, but what I mean is to reduce the minimum casualties. If you listen to me, send some people to your hands. The Konoha shinobi have been crushed to death. At the back of the battlefield, a group of rock shinobi commanders, all gathered together. Watching that there are already companions rushing into the Konoha trench. Four Tails Jinchuriki Laozi, with a proud face, looked at the 5 Tails Jinchuriki class. HMPH, it's a joke, I've been making trouble, isn't it you? Seeing Laozi complacent, Ban immediately went back. This time Iwagakure's Chunin and above, almost all came out. It was originally possible to immediately break through Konoha's line of defense and directly enter the country of fire. However, because the Iwagakure commanders were at odds within, it was the ninja who let Konoha hold on for 2 days. Seeing Ban retort him, Laozi gave him a glance, and the two suddenly started to confuse each other. Laozi's strength was better than the class, but because his relationship with Onoki is at odds. So Onoki gave the commander-in-chief to the 5 Tails squad. This makes Laozi very upset. So after the war broke out, the contradiction between the two continued. This also led to Rock Shinobi's offensive intermittent, allowing Konoha to persist until now. Two adults. Now is not the time to argue. Seeing that the two quarreled again. Illustration. Dong Si-ren hurried to the side, trembling to persuade. The other rock shinobi Jonin conductors were also very helpless. In case many people admit their mistakes, now change the class to Han. Lao Zi and Han all have the strength of cage level. At the same time, it is also the two highest combat power in this rock shinobi army. However, because of their contradictory relationship, the two of them fought for so long in this battle. This made rock shinobi's Jonin commanders secretly complained in their hearts. But no way, both of them are a little stubborn. The Jonin of rock shinobi couldn't persuade them at all. After several persuasion to no avail. Now, there are only good-tempered Dongsaran who continue to persuade him. Report to sirs. Someone is coming at 3 o'clock, and it's very fast. Just when all Jonin complained, a sensory ninja of rock shinobi suddenly ran over from the side. The sudden report also interrupted Han and Lao Zi, who were arguing. 3 o'clock position. Isn't that the direction of the country of rain and the country of grass? These small countries don't want to participate in a great power war, do they? All the rock shinobi conductors were very puzzled. Then collectively looked to the right. How many people are here? Han was wearing a mask and could not see any emotions. However, his exposed eyebrows were also slightly raised at this moment. Currently only one person is detected. But his speed is really very, very fast. Perceive the ninja to answer truthfully. But when it comes to speed, he also specifically emphasized it. Because he has never seen a ninja with such a fast speed. One person. Did you make a mistake? Could it, maybe just passing by? Han hadn't spoken yet, and the rock shinobi were a little questioned. After all, at this moment rock shinobi, almost the entire nation's combat power is arranged here. Who would dare to rush over here alone without having eyesight? You can't make a mistake, the other party is indeed coming straight to the battlefield. The perception ninja replied solemnly. Rock shinobi and Konoha broke out here. Already, 2 days' time. The villages and people in the surrounding areas within 100 miles have also been evacuated long ago. Suddenly someone came straight here at an abnormal speed, and the purpose must be self-evident, coming towards the battlefield. People don't have to worry about it. If it's really an enemy, what kind of waves can he make? Lao Zi said with disdain. Compared to Han, he is more irritable and stubborn. This may be due to his character, or it may be the negative impact of the lava-style chakra attribute of 4 tails. Hearing Lao Zi's words, all the rock shinobi Jonin conductors also nodded. What if the speed of the incoming person is abnormal? Even if it is a cage-level powerhouse. Illustration. They also don't believe that the other party can make waves among the 8,000 troops. But the opponent's speed is really fast, already at the moment. Rumble. The words of perception ninja haven't been finished yet. A dazzling golden light suddenly flashed through everyone's eyes. Immediately afterwards, among the teams attacking the Konoha trench, a violent explosion suddenly occurred. The golden flames burst out suddenly. The blue arc was walking around in the flame. The violent movement not only attracted the attention of the rock shinobi conductors. Even the rock shinobi who were attacking the Konoha trench couldn't help but cast their sights on the place of the explosion. Ah, the speed is too fast, I can't stop it. The sound of sneer, coming from the flames of the explosion, suddenly became even more curious. Laser beam. Just when rock shinobi were puzzled. A beam of laser suddenly shot out of the flame. In an instant, 7 or 8 rock shinobi were pierced by the laser on the spot. Boom. The laser finally shot at the feet of the 2 rock shinobi. Suddenly another violent explosion occurred. The flame formed by photons instantly enveloped 2 rock shinobi. Ah, at this moment, the pain is transmitted to the brain to replenish nerves. Several rock shinobi who were penetrated by the laser. Then he howled in pain and fell to the ground. Enemy attack. Sumazi yelled, reminding everyone around him. He attacked the Konoha trench this time, the front commander. Earth-style cracked the soil and turned the palm. After reminding everyone, Shumazi quickly formed a seal with both hands, and one palm was lined up on the ground. The earth shattered instantly. Countless rock fragments are like raindrops. Towards the center of the flame, a random shot was passed. Boom 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 boom. The sound of rocks hitting the ground came from the flames. After a few seconds, the release of Earth-style ninjutsu is over. The hurricane caused by the shooting rocks also dissipated the golden flames. And a ninja wearing a samurai costume with Konoha's forehead was also revealed in everyone's eyelids at this time. Nani, unharmed. In the end, what happened? The surrounding rock shinobi all looked like hell. Sumazi is also full of doubts, and his eyebrows are condensed together. Because of his earth style, the area directly covers all the areas in the flame. Has such a large-scale attack been avoided? I know that guy. At the same time that Zhaojian was revealed, the command post at the back of the rock shinobi battlefield also sounded a shocked voice. And the one who spoke out was a Jonin with chicken coop hair. Illustration. You know. Hearing the sound of the fire, everyone looked at him. That guy is a very powerful kendo master. And Dashi died in his hands. Huogong stared at Zhaojian closely, and said in a very solemn voice. The three of Dashi were chopped into pieces with a single knife. At this moment, it seemed to begin to appear in his heart again. He will never forget the bloody and terrifying picture in his life. Oh, Master of Kendo, Huogong, are you serious? A young man with a double ponytail haircut. With a look of interest, he drew the shinobi from his back. The look was full of eager excitement. Hey, the devil. Don't mess around, you are definitely not that guy's opponent. Seeing the eyes glowing, as if the magic leeches had found its prey, Huogong hurriedly spoke to dissuade him. He couldn't be more clear about the strength of Huogong. Although he is an Iwagakure, he always thinks that swordsmanship is the first. Usually no one would refute his self-proclaimed title. Because his kendo is really extraordinary. But if you compare Huogong with that Konoha shinobi in kendo, then it is not on the same level at all. Under the siege of more than a dozen people, that guy easily killed 3 people and rescued the powerful companions. From Huogong's point of view, the opponent's kendo strength is estimated to have reached the level of shadow. And the strength of the magic leeches at the moment is just the elite Jonin. Are you underestimating me? 390. I'm the number 1 in Iwagakure's kendo. Hearing the firelight saying that he was definitely not an opponent, the leeches suddenly frowned slightly in irritation. After dropping a word, he kicked his legs and rushed directly to the forward army. Hey, magic leech. Huogong wanted to reach out and grab the demon leech. But the demon leeches suddenly rushed out, letting him grab the space. Huogong, did you make a big fuss? There is only one person on the other side. Looking at the flames on his face a little anxious, Huangtu said suspiciously on the side. Yes, even if the leeches really can't beat the opponent. But with so many of us here, can't we still save him? Wenya also said with a smile. In fact, not only the 2 of them, but the rest of Rock Shinobi also felt that the fire was a bit too fussy. So a crowd of Rock Shinobi began to laugh at him one after another. Sword fighting is different from ninjutsu duel. Life and death are a matter of instant. Huogong smiled bitterly when he saw so many friends teasing him. Then he quickly told everyone the experience of the battle with Zhaojian. After speaking, he ignored the dignified expressions of everyone. Several jumps also rushed forward. Wenya, Dongsadran, you guys also go up to help. Looking at the flames going forward, Han thought about it for a while and ordered the 2 of them. Yes. Wenya and Dong Siren responded at the same time. Then quickly rushed to the front army. The hurricane blew away the flames. Zhaojian also appeared in the eyes of Rock Shinobi. Being unscathed, Sand Shinobi frowned. Since you hit me with a stone. Then as a courtesy, I will pay you a respect. I ignored Rock Shinobi who looked a little confused. After looking around the dense crowd around him, Zhaojian suddenly laughed. Because Rock Shinobi don't know his information yet. So the stations are very dense. If this big move is hit, it is estimated that the prestige value will skyrocket. Ba Kai Chong Go Yu. He secretly snorted in his heart. Zhaojian gathered his hands on his chest. The dazzling golden light, and the flickering arc. The arms began to gather in front of him. Stop him. See Zhaojian's actions. Sumazi suddenly yelled instinctively. Although he didn't know what Zhaojian was doing. But a bad premonition began to fill his heart. Earth-style Tulan Dumpling. Earth-style Iwasenmoto technique. Wind-style Feng Qi technique. After hearing Suma Shi's reminder, the surrounding rock shinobi instantly recovered. After that, they set up their hands and began to release their own ninjutsu. Zhaojian, who was in the encirclement, was immediately surrounded by ninjutsu in all directions. Yes, just when ninjutsu was about to hit him, Zhaojian stepped on the ground suddenly and rushed straight into the sky. The longer the Bakichangu jade is stored, the more light bombs will naturally be emitted. However, the accumulation of power was interrupted, and Zhaojian could only be released early. What the hell is going on with this feeling of palpitations? Looking at it like the sun, it rises directly into the sky. Zhaojian. For some reason, Suma-ji suddenly felt a little hairy inside. Even the corners of the eyes were violently twitching at this moment. It seemed that the instinct of the body was telling him that it was very dangerous at this moment. Disperse it all to me. With the alarm bell in his heart, Shumazi hurriedly reminded his companions loudly. Although I don't know the specific danger and how it will strike, it is better to separate the teams for the sake of safety. However, I have not yet waited for my companions to understand what Sumashi meant. A brighter light suddenly burst out from the sky. The ground of the entire battlefield was instantly illuminated with a golden glow. Even in Konoha's trenches, the two sides who were fighting at the moment were drawn away by the golden light. Earth-style rock shinobi technique. Seeing that the light bullet was shooting down like raindrops, Sumazi, who was standing upside down with all his hairs, dived into the soil in an instant. At this moment, the dense golden light also hit the ground. Boom 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 boom. Boom 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 boom. The golden light continued to explode on the ground. The flickering thunder and lightning also wandered non-stop. No one was killed in the vicinity of the explosion. It was also struck by lightning, paralyzed on the spot, and then drowned by the flame formed by photons. Nani, coming from the back, the demon leeches who wanted to fight Zhaojian. In an instant, a violent sudden stop stopped on the spot. Then quickly jumped back a few times, and hurriedly retreated. If he was faster just now, he would also step into Zhaojian's bombing range. Boom 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 boom. Ah! The light bomb lasted for 7 or 8 seconds. The screams of the rock shinobi in the bombing area are also declining. When the last light ejected, Zhaojian also fell from the air. At this moment, all the areas around him with a diameter of 100 meters have become pits and pits. With stumps and broken arms and various organs, the wine was all over the floor. There is no gunpowder in the explosion of photons. Therefore, the air at this moment is filled with a strong smell of blood. The glittering golden light stopped. The continuous explosions also stopped abruptly. When Zhaojian fell to the ground, the entire battlefield fell into a brief silence. The scene, unusually bloody. With Zhaojian as the center, the surrounding area with a diameter of 100 meters was all stained red with blood. Various stumps and broken arms and fragments of corpses scattered all over the bumpy ground in the bombing area. The whole scene is like infinite purgatory. Bloody, horror, horror. Even in the air, it seemed to be filled with a light red blood mist. However, due to Zhaojian's big move, he didn't have the energy to complete it. The bombing of light bombs did not have the usual number. Therefore, there were still more than a dozen rock shinobi in the field, and luckily survived. At this moment, they all had their faces full of horror. Because although they were not directly killed by the light bomb, they were hit by the wandering thunder, and their bodies were paralyzed on the spot. Laser beam. Shoo, hoo, hoo. Boom boom boom. Zhaojian raised his hands, his fingertips flashed with dazzling golden light. Directly in front of everyone on the entire battlefield, take the rock shinobi who survived. They all gave headshots one by one and killed them on the spot. There was no wave of trouble on his face. In terms of action, he did not hesitate. Only a few seconds, before the rock shinobi were stuck in a daze and didn't react. The rock shinobi who survived the bombing area also lost their lives in an instant. The aura of killing and decisiveness gradually diffused from Zhaojian's body. This caused the sluggish rock shinobi to react with a chill collectively. Ding! Congratulations to the master. Kill 336 enemies and gain 17,808 prestige points. Close black lens bracket. Cool. Hearing the system prompt, Zhaojian also whispered inwardly. This is the history of his acquisition system. A single attack has gained the most prestige. At this moment, his prestige value reserve has once again broken through the 100,000 mark, reaching a giant of 114,000. It's time for another high-level lottery draw. Sumazi, who sneaked into the ground, just got out of the ground outside the bombing zone. It was also at this time that he witnessed Zhaojian's merciless shooting. However, although his teeth were itchy with hatred, he did not dare to act rashly at this moment. Oh, so it was you. Are you satisfied with my response? Looking at Commander Rock Shinobi, who was gritting his teeth, Zhaojian said with a smile. However, his smile in Sumazi's eyes is no different from showing his teeth. Everyone, don't come here, all spread out for me. Zhaojian's moves caused a lot of movement, which directly attracted the attention of the entire battlefield. Because of this, more and more rock shinobi who were attacking the Konoha trenches have gradually moved closer to this side. After seeing this scene, Sumazi immediately yelled to stop him. After all, no one knows how many times the opponent can use this large-scale killing trick. The village's support is coming. In the Konoha trench, Mimura Hamaki's voice resounded. Although he does not know Zhaojian, the Konoha on top of Zhaojian's head is forehead protector. Let him know that the other party is indeed Konoha's ninja. At this time, Konoha's ninja came to the battlefield, and it was undoubtedly a supporting reinforcement. So in order to improve morale, Mimura Hamaki immediately roared and shouted. It's Baiyun Zhaojian. The village's support is really here. The other Jonin solved the opponent and quickly looked out. He had seen Zhaojian and Uchiha in a battle, so he knew Zhaojian naturally, so he also yelled. Baiyun Zhaojian. One after another astonishment sounded in the Konoha trench. Although most people don't know what Zhaojian looks like. But it does not prevent them from hearing the name. Isn't that guy the strongman who fought Uchiha and defeated the Sand Shinobi advance team before the war broke out? Now that Baiyun Zhaojian is here, it is undoubtedly that the support team has really arrived. The Konoha shinobi who had defended the trenches for 2 days suddenly began to cheer up. The heart that had been depressed for 2 days was released. The combat power immediately rose by 2 or 3 points. What kind of ninjutsu is that golden light? At the rock shinobi headquarters behind the battlefield, a group of rock shinobi Jonin commanders also recovered from their horror. Just now, all of them had witnessed more than 300 companions, and they were instantly buried under each other's hands. Although 300 people were killed in battle, for them, who had an army of 8,000 at this moment, they could not hurt the slightest fur. But the time of death was only a few seconds. More than 300 people were killed in a few seconds, the meaning is completely different. If the opponent can continue to kill the enemy like this, let alone the 8,000 teams. Just double the number of them, and they will also be killed by the other party. As some S-rank ninjutsu, the Jonin commanders are all speculating. Even Han and Lao Zi, who had been in conflict for a few days, couldn't help but glance at each other at this moment. With this kind of large-scale killing ninjutsu, we must not leave him. The hunter, the opposite, the dead man, the 3 of you are also going up to help. You must behead this man as soon as possible. Looking down for a moment, Han, as the commander-in-chief, ordered loudly. Yes, hearing the order, the 3 people responded at the same time. Then he accelerated directly and ran toward the front of the battlefield. How, are you still dissatisfied with my response? You shot me with a rock, and I bounced back to you with light. It's courtesy, it's fair. Seeing Commander Rock Shinobi, whose face was gloomy and dripping, Zhaojian suddenly laughed loudly. The huge amount of prestige is paid in, which makes him feel very good. So he couldn't help but tease. Seeing the other party teasing while walking towards him, Sumazi immediately took a step back subconsciously. Hey, Konoha, I heard that your kendo is very good. Dare you come to a life and death duel with me in the kendo? Just as Zhaojian walked slowly towards Sumazi, a somewhat silly voice rang from the left. Turning to look around, only one head is ponytailed. Rock Shinobi, who holds a shinobi sword in his hand, is watching him with slanted eyes. Oh, you want to compete with me in kendo? After a daze, Zhaojian laughed in surprise. In this shinobi who majored in chakra, his kendo strength is definitely the first well-deserved one. It can even be said that compared with the kendo of the Jonin world, one's own kendo is a cross-dimensional gap. Unexpectedly, there are still people who want to challenge their kendo. What? Don't you dare! The leeches deliberately showed disdain, wanting to irritate Zhaojian. The technique used by Zhaojian just now shocked him. If you want to compete with ninjutsu, Mazi thinks that he is inferior to the opponent, but he is still very confident in his kendo. Knowing that Zhaojian was also a kendo master, the demon wanted to provoke Zhaojian on purpose. I want him to compete purely with himself in kendo. Don't dare, this is really a joke. I've just never seen it before, someone is so anxious to find death. Zhaojian sneered at Kaido. Although I don't know the purpose of the other party using the radical method, Zhaojian doesn't care. How can the prestige value delivered to the door be accepted without a single cut? In that case, please pull out your knife. Seeing that the other party agreed to fight against himself in the sword, Mazi was delighted in his heart. Judging from the opponent's ninjutsu just now, the strength of the opponent is at least an elite Jonin, or even a higher level. However, Mazi is still very confident in his own swordsmanship. Sky Kong Yunjian. Zhaojian folded his hands and drew left and right in front of him. A dazzling golden sword, instantly condensed in front of him. Then Zhaojian raised his hand, grabbed the hilt of the sword, and held the lightsaber in his hand. Come on, let me see. Why on earth do you have the confidence to dare to challenge me in kendo? Zhaojian sneered and hooked his finger at the enchanted leech. Looking at the lightsaber in Zhaojian's hand, the demon leeches slightly frowned, and then pulled out the shinobi on his back. Hey, demon leeches, are you sure? Seeing the devil's behavior, Sumaji called out loudly from the other side. In fact, the best choice to meet such a strong at this moment is to wait for the support of the strong to be sent from the rear. But the leeches had already walked up, so he couldn't stop it. Do not worry, I am Iwagakure, the #1 master of kendo. The leeches stepped on the blood all over the floor and walked towards Zhaojian. The blade was slowly unsheathed, and his expression began to concentrate. Except Rock Shinobi, who was still fighting in the Konoha trench at this time. Almost all of the surrounding people projected their gazes towards the two of them. Zhaojian held a lightsaber in his hand and stood casually in place. The devil leeches slowly drew his sword, and his momentum was steadily improving. Judging from the appearance and aura, the leeches crushed Zhaojian by more than 1 or 2. But in this ninja world, no one knows the realm of the unity of humans and swords. In Zhaojian's body, this kind of aura is nothing but a thing that can be easily retracted and retracted. Bang! Rock Shinobi stream slash. Demon Leech's ninja sword was slowly pulled out, and its momentum rose higher and higher. When the distance from Zhaojian was 10 meters, the knife was completely pulled out. And his aura has reached its peak at this moment. Relying on the best condition at this time, the magic leech stepped on the blood-stained ground. The body turned into a black shadow and shot out at Zhaojian in an instant. Fancy bells and whistles. Just when the opponent rushed, Zhaojian also stepped on the ground and greeted him. At the same time, the lightsaber in his hand was raised high. There was a slight collision of gold and iron. Zhaojian and Sumazi staggered each other's bodies. All the sights of Rock Shinobi were on the two of them instantly, and they kept shooting and watching, trying to see who was hurt in the end. But what made them frown was that neither of them seemed to have the slightest trace of blood stains on their bodies. This makes it difficult for them to judge what is going on between the two at this time. Rock Shinobi streamed in kendo, but you're... Dang. Puff. Just the moment Zhaojian's voice fell, the ninja sword held by the demon leeches in front of him suddenly snapped. And on his entire waistline, red blood burst out suddenly. Immediately after his upper body, followed by the broken shinobi, he collapsed forward suddenly. Only the body below the waist was left, and he stood still on the spot. Carrot. Magic leech. Magic leech. 2 horrified exclamations suddenly exploded. And the two who made a sound. One is Sumazi standing not far away. The other person was the light of fire that had just arrived from behind. The surrounding rock shinobi all had their pupils widened, and there was an uproar in an instant. No one can imagine that the battle will be solved with a single blow. The loser was Jonin, the #1 swordsman in their village. A big mouthful of blood came out of the fallen demon leeches. Zhaojian's knife was very fast, so he did not die immediately. But at this moment he can no longer feel the existence of the lower body. How can it be so fast? Demon Leech's eyes widened unbelievably. While staring at the shattered shinobi in his hand, he was still coughing up blood. He didn't completely swipe his knife just now, and he felt as if he had been hit. What shocked him even more was that even the weapon was cut off, and it was only then broken. So how fast can this cut be? Back, Magic Leech, don't mess around, you are definitely not that guy's opponent. As he was dying, the ears of the devil seemed to sound a warning from his companions. But at this time, his pupils had already begun to fade away. The various exclamations in his ears also gradually disappeared in his ears at this moment. Chapter 151. Magic. The fire hissed and burst into the lungs. His two best friends in Iwagakure. One is Dashi, and the other is a Leech's. Unexpectedly, these two best friends died in the hands of the same person before and after. The anger hits the forehead from the soles of the feet. The nameless fire burst out in my heart. Just as the firelight tried to rush up directly, a figure suddenly fell in front of him, blocking the road in front of him. Hey, Huogong, do you want to rush to die? Shumazi pressed on Huogong's shoulder tightly, his expression extremely solemn. The situation at the moment also made him very embarrassed. The opponent is not only very powerful alone, and also has a large area of killing tactics. This made him dare not arbitrarily, and sent a large army forward to encircle and suppress. So I can only wait for the rear command to send masters to support it. However, although Sumazi's abacus was well played, Zhaojian would not wait dryly. Just when Sumazi stopped the fire and turned his back to Zhaojian, Zhaojian directly raised his left hand, and a laser was directed at the back of his head, lacing directly. Get out of the way. The moment the golden light lit up, it immediately attracted the attention of the firelight. So he quickly raised his hand and pushed Sumazi's head away. Boom! Ah! The sharp sound of the laser rang in Shumazi's ears. Although he was pushed aside by the fire, he escaped a catastrophe. However, in order to save him, Huogong was directly shot off 2 fingers by the laser on his right palm. Blood splashed on the edge of his face, and Shumazi's left face was instantly blushed. Fire! Sumazi, who was pushed to the ground, was shocked. Just when he was about to stand up, the back of him glowed with golden light again. Earth-style earth flow wall. Rumble. A loud shout resounded. It's just a matter of time. An earth wall suddenly rises behind Shumazi, blocking the laser dangerously. However, the aftermath of the laser explosion also lifted both Sumazi and Huogong away in an instant. Boom, boom, ah la la, what a pity. Just when the two fell to the ground, Zhaojian's slightly regretful voice ACDA also rang. His attack just now almost killed 2 Jonin directly. Hey, are you alright? When Ya and Dongxiren, who came from the back, quickly helped Zumoji and Huogong up. The earth wall just now was released by one of them. I'm fine, but the fire is hurt. Sumashi, who got up, looked at the flames anxiously. I saw that the little finger and ring finger of the latter's right hand had been blown up. Neither did I. Tear. The firelight being held up reluctantly tore a piece of cloth from the corner of his clothes, and wrapped his injured right palm directly. This guy is very strong, we have to go together. Wrap the wound indiscriminately, Huguang said with gritted teeth. The other 3 also nodded solemnly. Although Zhaojian has only moved his hands a few times since he appeared. But there is no doubt that the strength he showed has put a lot of pressure on everyone. Shohei is here too. At this moment, I heard the broken teeth behind him, quickly turned his head and glanced back, and then laughed. 4 Jonin face cage level at the same time. To be honest, they are not sure of victory. But at this moment 2 people came to support, and they immediately became more relaxed. What? Papa, Papa, only 2 breaths in time. The 2 people who rushed from behind also rushed to the 4 of them. Fire, nothing serious, right? He glanced at his right palm, where the flame was still dripping blood, and who raised his brow slightly. Among this group of Jonin at this time, his strength is the strongest. Well, there is nothing serious about my injury. But pay more attention to Konoha's ninja, that guy seems to be in control of Muji ninjutsu. After taking a deep breath, Huogong said solemnly. Oh, 6 Jonin, they are really scary. Zhaojian also naturally saw the two people who rushed over, so he pretended to be exaggerated. But in the tone, there was no fear at all, instead it was full of teasing. In fact, Zhaojian was basically invincible after obtaining the lightning fruit. So don't say it is facing 6 Jonin. Even facing 6 cage-level powerhouses, he will not show any fear. Because just elementalizing an ability, it almost makes him invincible. How? Listening to your tone, don't you put the 6 of us in your eyes? Hearing Zhaojian's weird accent, Shou frowned and looked over. The other 5 Jonin also gritted their teeth secretly. After all, Zhaojian's words are full of naked contempt. 6 Jonins dealt with a cage level, in their view, the odds of winning were on their side. Yes, you should call the 2 Jinchuriki together. In this case, you can at least escape. Hearing Shou's rhetorical question, Zhaojian did not deny it, but said with a smile. In fact, on the way here, he felt 2 abnormal chakras. And the chakra is full of coldness and hatred. This feeling, Zhaojian had seen in Kushina before. So he immediately knew that the 2 Jinchuriki from Iwagakure had also been dispatched to the battlefield. You are really not ashamed. Don't say it's you. Even if your Hokage is here, he wouldn't dare to say such arrogant things. Hearing Zhaojian's remarks, Dongxiren immediately counterattacked unceremoniously. The rest of the rock shinobi, who were far around, heard Zhaojian's crazy words, they also yelled in the same angrily. Of course, their curses were automatically filtered by Zhaojian. I'm so kind to persuade me. Since you don't listen, please come up and try. In the instant that he lifted his hand and opened it, the lightsaber that had dispersed before was once again condensed by Zhaojian in his hand. Since you don't listen to persuasion, come up and try it yourself. Zhaojian held the Tiankongyan sword in one hand, his eyes and temperamental rock shinobi Jonin. Go together. Seeing Zhaojian's arrogant appearance, the hunter shouted and took the lead to take the lead and rush up. The other 5 rock shinobi also accelerated and followed his footsteps. As a Jonin level in a village, their fighting consciousness is naturally not comparable to Chunin. So naturally there is no need to draw up any combat plans in advance. Everything only needs to be played according to one's own strengths. Earth-style tooling meatballs. Dongsadran, who was running in the line, suddenly swiftly, Jian. He lifted a huge boulder directly from the ground, and smashed it towards Zhaojian from the back of a few people far away. Boom! Suddenly a laser shot came, and the boulder was in the air, directly smashed by Zhaojian. The exploded rocks and clods fell from the sky in an instant, and smashed them down towards Rock Shinobi, who was running towards them. Whoops, 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 whoops. The sound of the wind sounded one after another, and the rock shinobi Jonin instantly accelerated, avoiding the falling rock fragments. At this moment, the distance between the two sides has been stretched to about 30 meters. Earth style. Crack the soil and turn the palm. Boom rumble. Sumazi, who was running, suddenly accelerated to the front of the team. Immediately after a sudden stop, Chakra's palms were condensed, and they slammed on the ground. The earth shattered instantly. Countless rock fragments shot at Zhaojian like raindrops. Since this ninjutsu was used before, but it did not cause any harm to Zhaojian, so this time Sumazi also increased the chakra delivery. As a result, the power and attack area caused by it has also increased by 1 level compared to before. Chong, boom, facing the gravel that was overwhelming and blocking his vision. Zhaojian held the lightsaber in both hands and swung a knife forward. A slash that was 5 or 6 high and 20 meters long. The plow opened the ground in an instant, and roared out like a rolling wave. The crushed stones that hit the sky overwhelmingly were all swallowed by the slashes, and they rushed out towards the rock shinobi at an unabated speed. Nani, facing this unprecedented exaggerated slash. The rock shinobi Jonin all stopped anxiously. Everyone, including the rock shinobi onlookers, was stunned at this moment. Only then did they realize that the fire that died under Zhaojian's hand before was not injustice at all. Immediately swiped this kind of slash that broke common sense. In the realm of Kendo, it has already crossed the firelight and I don't know how many levels. Earth-style Toriu city wall. At this time, it's the opposite of being prepared for defense long ago. He directly hit the ground with a heavy palm. An earth wall 10 meters high and 7 or 8 meters wide rose from the ground in an instant. In an instant, it was blocked in front of Slash and the rock shinobi. Rumble, however, the seemingly indestructible walls. Under the roar of slashing. Just like the tofu residue project. From the bottom of the city wall, it was cut open in an instant. Then the slash that broke through the city wall, with unstoppable power, rushed out to the crowds of rock shinobi again. Hurry up! The moment the city wall was slashed and breached, the hunter running at the front of the team also screamed in horror. Then he took the lead in bending and kicking the ground, and suddenly jumped up. The others jumped up following their footsteps when they were prompted. Rumble, the terrifying cloth slash that came roaring. With great power, it passed through the ground below them. The hurricane blew everyone from underneath, making their scalp numb with fright. What a pity! Zhaojian sighed helplessly. He could perceive that the 6 Jonin from Rock Shinobi all jumped together. At this moment, they are in the air and have nowhere to borrow. It is definitely a good time to kill the enemy. However, although the high wall with the rung in front of the two sides was cut off by a chop, it did not go down directly. The high wall of more than 10 meters was cut off at a height of 5 or 6 meters and fell down. There was still a height of nearly 10 meters left, and Renly was in front of the two sides, blocking his opportunity to kill the enemy. Buzzing. However, while this high wall blocked Zhaojian's opportunity to kill the enemy, it also blocked the sight of Rock Shinobi Jonin, so Zhaojian folded his hands in front of him and quickly gathered his strength. Whirring. This kind of slash, is it really possible for Kendo? At this time, the rock shinobi who had just landed in the air were all gasping for breath. Their backs were all wet with cold sweat. Looking at each other, everyone's eyes trembled slightly. It shows that their hearts have been greatly shaken and disturbed. Go, get closer. Hunter gasped for a while, and then rushed out again. Between a few jumps, with the companions who followed up. Stepping directly on the huge wall standing in front of him, he rushed upwards in strides. Papa. The footsteps kept ringing, just when the rock shinobi just climbed onto the high wall. Suddenly there was a dazzling golden light, which rose directly to the sky. Ba Kai Chong Go Yu. Zhaojian, who rushed to the sky, suddenly opened his hip arms. Countless light bullets poured down from his body in an instant like raindrops. Back, fast back. The hunter who rushed to the high wall first screamed again, and then he turned back and jumped off the wall. The move in front of him had only killed more than 300 of their companions in seconds. So they have fresh memories of this move. The rest of the Jonin who had just exposed their heads on the wall were also so scared that their souls jumped back. Boom. At this moment, the light bomb bombarded indiscriminately. The circumference of 100 meters in diameter is all shrouded in it. Under Zhaojian's prepared power, the terrain was blown up with sores, and the terrain was directly changed. Even the high wall standing in front, nearly 10 meters high and 7 or 8 meters wide, was constantly being defeated under the frenzied bombardment. The light bullet kept shooting. The sound of blasting is endless. The ground was plowed over and over again. Because of this big move, no one hindered Zhaojian's energy accumulation. Therefore, the number of light bombs and battery life are not at the same level as the previous big move. At this time, the light bomb had been bombing continuously for nearly 10 seconds, and there was no sign of stopping. Reverse. Explosion-style Hunter shouted anxiously. At this time, the high wall was rapidly collapsing and becoming shorter under the bombardment of the light bomb. According to the current situation, if you sit and wait for death at this time, in just a few seconds, the high wall will be completely defeated, and they will be dead. Earth-style Earth Dynamic Core. Boom rumble. As soon as the shouting of the hunter fell, the 390 was just finished. Under the blast of chakra, both palms slammed on the ground. Suddenly, the surrounding mountains shook. The ground where everyone was on instantly formed a square hole, which quickly collapsed directly below. And the depth of the collapse is as high as tens of meters. It's quite capable. I sensed that the ground where Rock Shinobi was located had sunk tens of meters. I had no choice but to retreat and fell from above the sky. With such a deep hole, let alone the end of one's big move, even if the battery life of the big move is doubled, it is estimated that it will not hurt them at all. Whirring. Stop. After hearing the explosion, the Rock Shinobi Jonin in the pit all felt fearful for a while. If it was a second or two slower just now, it is estimated that they would all be screened. Unexpectedly, that guy is actually so powerful. Explosion-style Hunter turned his head and glanced at everyone around him, and said with an unusually solemn expression. And hearing his words, the faces of the other 5 people were also very ugly. It hasn't gotten close to the opponent yet, and his side has been beaten to the point where he can only defend and dodge. If it is a single encounter with each other, then it is almost undoubtedly killed by a spike. It is estimated that it is not much different from the fire that was killed before. What the hell should I do now? The opponent's strength is obviously beyond expectation. Wenya also glanced at everyone and asked a question that made everyone very distressed. Before, they all thought that even if the opponent is a cage-level strong. However, under the siege of 6 Jonin and even the elite Jonin, the result was definitely only a slaughter. However, the situation at this time surpassed everyone's expectations. The opponent is obviously not an ordinary cage level. Because he is not only Kendo Wushwang. Even ninjutsu is equally powerful and unmatched. At this time, they finally understood why the other party dared to speak so arrogantly before the battle. Because this guy really has such a powerful strength as an iron strike. The rest will be discussed later. On the contrary, hurry up and raise the ground. Hunter interrupted the people who were preparing to think about the countermeasures, and then reminded them to the back with their hands still pressed on the ground. At this moment, the other party has already accepted the move, if it does not immediately rise up now. The other party will be condescending and face yourself and others. At that time, one's own side will fall into a disadvantaged position. No one knows, will anything else happen at that time? After all, they are in a state of ignorance of Zhaojian's abilities and intelligence, except for those previously shown. Boom rumble. Hearing the words of hunting, the chakra delivery was increased again. The ground looked like an elevator, and it rose back up quickly. The brief exchanges are only between a few breaths. When everyone was parallel to the ground again, Zhaojian had just risen from a high altitude, and it didn't take long for him to fall to the ground. Otherwise, he would have rushed over, directly above the huge crater, and once again came to wash the ground. It seems that I underestimated you before. To survive my attack, you do have 2 brushes. After pulling out the sky cloud sword again, Zhaojian joked while walking towards the rock shinobi. However, his words, heard in the ears of a crowd of rock shinobi, are unusually harsh. Once upon a time, Jonin was even the strength of elite Jonin. In the mouth of others, has it become the existence of only 2 brushes. As Jonin, they are in the village, but the mainstay is good. Didn't you expect that in the eyes of the other party, you and others would be so worthless? Just think you are complimenting us. Explosion-style Hunter took a step forward and responded to Zhaojian's words. At the same time, with his right hand behind him, he made a quiet gesture. Seeing his movements, the rest of rock shinobi glanced at each other, and then began to form seals in secret. But what they didn't know was that in fact, under Zhaojian's perception, all their actions were invisible, but Zhaojian didn't bother to pay attention to it. It is indeed a compliment. But it's just, nothing more. The distance between the 2 sides has narrowed to 10 meters. The moment Zhaojian's voice fell, he slammed on the ground and shot out. This group of rock shinobi's defense and dodge are quite good, so he decided to solve the battle with melee combat. Earth-style earth flow wall. Earth-style earth flow wall. At this moment, 2 earth walls rose at the same time. While standing in front of the hunter, blocking the back road of hunting. He happened to be double-teamed in the center. When Zhaojian was puzzled, the hunter under perception suddenly took out a stack of detonation charms and stuck them on the wall in front of him. Then his legs slammed on the ground, and he jumped up all of a sudden. Earth-style rock missile. Boom. A loud noise suddenly came out. Behind the second earth wall, the teeth are already ready. The moment Hunter jumped up, he directly smashed the second earth wall with a palm. Under his great power, the earth wall smashed by him impacted on the earth wall with detonation talisman in front. Then the detonation talisman that was hit hard immediately caused a bigger explosion, forming a huge shock wave. Countless rubble and mud, under the shock wave, directly turned into a fan-shaped Zhaojian, and suddenly burst out and shot out. You are really chicken thieves. Perceiving the action of Shoshi sticking the detonation talisman on the wall, Perceiving Wenya again, he smashed the earth wall behind with a palm. So Zhaojian understood in an instant the puzzling behavior of this group of rock shinobi. These guys really made a good calculation. First resort to defensive ninjutsu and let yourself be taken lightly. Then the hunter trapped in the wall secretly posted the detonation talisman to bury the deadliest move. Then he jumped up suddenly from behind the earth wall, attracting his attention. Finally, Wenya, who had been waiting for a long time, smashed the back wall with one palm, triggering the detonation talisman on the front dirt wall. The original simple defensive soil wall has been directly turned into an unexpected attack. This series of tricks come down. If you don't perceive ninjutsu, or if your brain's response is not bright enough, I will definitely be hit 100% directly. The shock waves and gravel generated by the explosion directly sifted the spot. However, what they faced was Zhaojian. Chong. Boom. The moment the earth wall was detonated, Zhaojian swung the lightsaber in his hand suddenly. A golden slash that was 7 or 8 meters high and 2 or 3 meters wide was swung out by him in an instant. Shock waves and gravel from the explosion of the earth wall. In an instant, all was annihilated under his slash. Then the slash with an unpredictable power rushed towards the hunter in midair and the Wenya below. Nani. Seeing the oncoming slash, explosion-style hunter suddenly exclaimed. He didn't expect that the perfect cooperation of himself and others would be broken so easily. Nor did he expect that the opponent's counterattack would come so quickly. Explosion-style mind fist. The hunter, who could not hide, clenched a fist with one hand, and smashed it directly towards the golden slash. His explosion style, no matter what it hits, it will instantly explode. Boom. Ah. The upper half of the golden slash directly exploded under the boundaries of Hunter's bloodline. And he himself, because of the explosion and impact caused by the slash, was directly lifted out. Hunting. Wenya, who had avoided the beheading on the ground, quickly raised his head and glanced after hearing the screams of the hunter. Shosho sprinkled a row of blood in the air, and his body flew backwards. There is a flaw. At this moment, Zhaojian, who rushed from behind the slash, appeared in front of Wenya, who raised his head. The lightsaber held high in his hand was cut down in an instant. Clang. There was a sound of golden and iron fighting. A pair of arms blocked Zhaojian's lightsaber. On the arm, 2 silver-white hidden blades were also tied. Don't think about it so easily. Huogong crossed his hands in front of him, holding Zhaojian's lightsaber. His expression was a bit distorted and hideous. Wenya, who was saved, was startled in a cold sweat. After reacting, he slammed into the ground and jumped out to the rear. At the same time, while he was in the air, he began to knot up quickly. Illustration. Ah. Is my attack so good? Zhaojian held the sword in one hand, and while speaking, he suddenly increased the strength in his hand. Relying on the inherent strength of the vortex physique, with a direct boom, the firelight was suppressed and knelt on the ground. Kneeling on the ground with his feet on the fire, he grinned with pain. The cold sweat on his forehead disappeared instantly. Fire! Fire! At this moment, the other 3 talents suddenly awakened from the sudden change, and then quickly took possession of them and rushed up. Reaction too slow. Zhaojian yelled loudly. Armament hockey instantly covered the sky cloud sword. Then the intensity in his hands was increased again, and the lightsaber was suddenly pressed down. Puff! Ah! Heart-piercing screams sounded, and the lightsaber plunged directly into the firelight's right shoulder. The red blood spread from his shoulder in an instant. At the moment when he was injured in severe pain, Zhaojian suddenly regained his strength, and then suddenly exerted his strength again. The lightsaber slashed his collarbone along the firelight's shoulder, and immediately sank into his belly. The screaming voice stopped abruptly. Huogong lost his eyes, and fell on his back to the ground. The brief confrontation and collision only happened in a moment. Under the pressure of Zhaojian's strength, the other rock shinobi were too late to rescue, and the fire was beheaded to the scene. Earth-style stalagmites. Wenya, who jumped back, fell to the ground at this time. After an angry shout, the palms that had finished Jian slammed on the ground. 4 sharp rock spears, front, back, left, and right stabbed Zhaojian at the same time from all directions. Chong. Boom. 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 However, Zhaojian was just a simple swing of a knife. The 4 rock spears that struck him were cut into several segments in an instant and scattered on the ground. Earth-style rock fist technique. At this moment, the Eastern Dead had rushed to Zhaojian's face. Raising his petrified right fist, he slammed directly at Zhaojian's front door. Boom! Zhaojian held the hilt in one hand and pressed the other hand on the blade, blocking the rock fist in front of him. However, the heavy power came from the sword, and he was overwhelmed to take a step back. It's commendable courage to rush forward. Zhaojian suddenly exerted his strength and pushed the Dongsadran who had exhausted his strength directly into the air. Then quickly raised his left hand and shot a laser at him. Boom! The moment the light shines. Dongsiren looked terrified, and clanged the rock fist in front. The laser shot on the rock fist, causing a violent photon explosion in an instant. And his figure flying upside down, as if hit by a truck, immediately accelerated and flew out. East Death. Winya, who was preparing to fight back in Jian, yelled in horror. In a short battle, 6 Jonin from Iwagakure. 1 person was injured, 1 person died, and 1 person was shot into the air. Illustration. Time happened so fast, Zhaojian's powerful feeling was overwhelmed. Let Winya feel an unusually heavy heart. Master Hunter. Master Fire. Lord Dongsiren. A series of exclamations came from the Rock Shinobi army watching the game. None of Rock Shinobi expected that this would be the result after the battle between the two sides. Or it should be said that no one could have expected Zhaojian to be so powerful. With almost a crushing posture, he instantly defeated the 3 Jonin who defeated Iwagakure. The powerful strength, in the comparison between the two sides, appears to be exceptional. That is simply not a level of power. It seemed like Jonin was playing against Genin. There is also a moat and mountain that cannot be crossed in the middle. Lois, the command is under your command. After Han and Lao Zi looked at each other, they rushed to the battlefield at the same time. For the first time in the past few days of conflict, the two of them seemed to be in such a tacit understanding. Don't worry, leave it to me. Huang Tu's face was dignified and shouted at the back of the two. At this moment, he is just a Jonin. It has not yet reached the cage level strength in the original work during the Fourth World War. So although he also wanted to help, but he was powerless. After all, judging from the battle just now, if Jonin joins the battle at this time, it will not turn the situation around at all. On the contrary, it may also hold back his own cage level. Wow, wow, wow. Various exclamations spread to Konoha's trenches. Both Konoha and Rock Shinobi, who were fighting, separated quickly in doubt. At this time, most of Rock Shinobi, who was attacking the Konoha trench, all went to watch the fiercest battle in the center of the battlefield. So the other Rock Shinobi in the trenches, without support, some got stuck in a deadlock. Therefore, after the two sides separated, they also took advantage of this opportunity to quickly retreat back. What's going on? Mimura Hamaki was also puzzled. Then he jumped out of the trench and looked towards the place with the greatest momentum. I saw that Baiyun Zhaojian was fighting with several Rock Shinobi Jonin as an enemy, and he was still in an absolute advantage. The strength of Baiyun Zhaojian is so strong. Yes, no wonder he was able to defeat Sunegakure's advanced troops alone before. After the Rock Shinobi retreated, Konoha's people all lay on the edge of the trench to watch the battle. The geographical location where their trenches are located is already on the high side. So their vision is also very good. You can clearly see the battle between Zhaojian and Rock Shinobi Jonin in the battlefield. Captain Yamaki, there are 2 more people behind Rock Shinobi. Do we need to support Baiyun Zhaojian? At this moment, a Konoha Jonin saw 2 people rushing from behind Rock Shinobi, so he turned his head and asked Mimura Hamaki on the edge of the trench. Hearing what he said, Mimura Hamaki looked at him intently. I saw a man with a beard and a man in red, rushing out of Rock Shinobi's camp at the same time. Don't go, those 2 are Jinchuriki from Iwagakure. We go up to help, and we can only add chaos to Baiyun Zhaojian. Seeing Lao Zi and Han's face clearly, Mimura Hamaki dignifiedly stopped. As the commander-in-chief against the Rock Shinobi battlefield, how can he not know the intelligence of the 2? Jinchuriki, Jonin exclaimed every time Yamaki said. Unexpectedly, Iwagakure actually dropped Jinchuriki on the battlefield. Perception Ninja, quickly check it out for me, where the support team is. Seeing Han and Laozi rushing to the battlefield, Hamaki Mimura was also a little anxious. After all, they don't have many people now. If they continue to support Baiyun Zhaojian, they are likely to have nothing to go back. Therefore, I can only deposit hope to the upcoming support team. Captain Yamaki. No support team was sensed. After receiving Mimura Hamaki's order, a nearby perceiver quickly closed his eyes and radiated his perceptual power to the rear. But when he expanded his perception to the limit, he was horrified to discover the support team previously thought to be coming, actually didn't even have a trace of it. What? Could it be that the support team hasn't arrived yet? Is this only Baiyun Zhaojian alone? Hearing the report of the perception ninja, Mimura Hamaki's face was solemn. The faces of the surrounding Konoha Jonin looked very ugly after looking at each other. After all, if there are no reinforcements, how can they go to support? Do you want to take the life of your companion and risk it? At the scene, there was an audible silence for a while. Time back to 2 minutes ago. When Zhaojian fired a laser and knocked the Dongdead out, Shikazu Suma rushed up. Earth-style Earth Dragon Technique. Earth-style Earth Dragon Technique. At the same time the two loud shouts rang. 2 Earth Dragons soared into the sky from the left and right of Zhaojian. After hovering and roaring in the air and increasing the momentum, the Earth Dragon directly turned and swooped down towards Zhaojian. Chang, chang, boom boom boom. Zhaojian raised the sky cloud sword in his hand. To the left and right, each swiped a 3 to 4 meter long golden slash. The huge Earth Dragon was in midair and collapsed in midair. The huge dragon body slammed on the ground, and also raised a lot of dust. This kind of attack is completely useless. Zhaojian raised his left hand, slapped the dust in front of him, and smiled at the 3 rock shinobi in front of him. Firelight was beheaded. As for the hunter and Dongxiren, Zhaojian was knocked out. Therefore, in front of Zhaojian, there were only 3 people, Wenya, Zuma Ji, and Yi Anti. After hearing Zhaojian's words, none of the 3 responded, but their expressions were extremely heavy. In this battle, the opponent's strength has exceeded their scope of response. Not to mention the others, just that hand, freely swinging the slashing sword. It's not something they can handle easily. My face is so dignified, why, now I know I'm afraid. But it's too late. Seeing the 3 people facing the enemy, Zhaojian sneered, slammed on the ground and rushed out again. Good promise. Earth-style Tulong gun. Zhaojian slapped the stamped teeth, bowed and slapped his palms on the ground. Choke, 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 choke. Countless sharp soil guns emerged from the ground like bamboo shoots. It is densely packed, growing on the only way in front of Zhaojian, trying to stop him. I have said it, this kind of thing is useless. Zhaojian, who galloped out, suddenly waved the sky cloud sword in his hand. A 7-8 meter long golden slash, forward again, and the horizontal side roared out. The densely packed soil guns standing in front of him, like paper, were instantly submerged under the slash. Flee. Then, Wenya roared, and rushed out to the left. But Sumoji suddenly jumped up high. Ah, another flaw is exposed. Zhaojian thrust forward and raised his left hand. A laser beam shot at Shumazi above the sky. Sumoji, who is at high altitude and has nowhere to borrow. I was shot directly in the head by the laser. Just when Zhaojian thought that blood would explode like fireworks, Sumozi's body gradually turned into mud. Earth-style clone. When Zhaojian was slightly surprised. The previous 3 rock shinobi were all under their noses. If they Jian, it should be that they can't hide it from themselves, right? But this time, I didn't find them Jian. Could it be? When you swipe a slash and your vision is blocked. Just as Zhaojian was guessing in his heart, Kagura suddenly sensed a figure in his heart. From below the ground, he gradually approached him. It was before that, Suma Shi who shot the clone by himself. It turned out to be underground. Zhaojian slowed down a little, and secretly held the sky cloud sword in his backhand. Then, pretending to be ignorant, he continued to move forward. Earth-style heart beheading technique. A muffled shout came from the ground under Zhaojian's feet. Immediately afterwards, a pair of arms broke through the ground and grabbed Zhaojian's ankles, trying to drag him into the ground. Chong, puff. At this moment, Zhaojian suddenly bowed and pierced the lightsaber directly into the ground. The tearing sound of Jinzao sounded, and a stream of blood spewed up from the ground along Zhaojian's lightsaber. Sumashi, Wenya and Yi, who had avoided the slash to the left, roared with tears. Looking at the amount of blood gushing from the ground, Sumazi must have been stabbed in a large artery. This time, he is definitely not lucky. In the face of absolute strength, your little cleverness is equally useless. Zhaojian vowed to speak frankly. He pulled out the Sky Kong Yun sword. The blood spewing out gradually stopped. This sword. It was pierced directly from Sumazi's neck, so he was already dead at this time. Earth-style Mire Marsh. At this time, Wenya's palms patted on the ground again. The ground under Zhaojian's feet suddenly softened quickly. How can this kind of attack be effective? Zhaojian snorted and was about to speed up to leave here. However, he was shocked to find that Sumazi, who was already dead, was still pulling his toes tightly. In this short moment, a large area of ground around Zhaojian instantly turned into a swamp. And he, who had nowhere to burrow, began to sink into the swamp. I'll go, I want to drag me when I die. Zhaojian cursed secretly, and squeezed his feet vigorously. However, the foot didn't pull out, but it made the sinking speed faster. Earth-style Earth Dynamic Core. Another burst of anger came. The flipped palms slapped violently on the ground. Under the chakra burst all over, the ground around Zhaojian, including the swamp, suddenly sank more than 10 meters in all directions. I'll go, I won't capsize in the gutter. The harder Zhaojian is, the faster he sinks. At this moment, the swamp had been submerged on his chest, and he did not dare to move randomly now. Have you trapped him? Nice job. At this moment, the hunter and Dongxiren, who were shot into the air by Zhaojian, also rushed back. However, both of them are abnormal wolf foxes. The whole forearm of the hunter was dripping with blood. And Dongxiren's right hand was also broken and twisted to one side. The four quickly came to the side of the pit, and saw Zhaojian being stuck in the quagmire, frowning. Go and give Zuma, let's be buried with G. Earth-style ACDA clay. Earth-style rock house collapsed. Boom. After yelling at Zhaojian, Wenya and Yi Tan both sealed their seals at the same time and pressed them on the ground. The wall around the cave collapsed quickly. Rock fragments, mixed with paste-like clay, poured down from the top of Zhaojian's head. What? At this critical moment, Zhaojian's body suddenly burst into golden light. The body instantly collapsed and turned into a dazzling photon. The sun got out of the swamp, and flew up from the cracks in the sky. It's fast. At the moment the golden light flashed, Zhaojian has appeared in the sky. Even the four rock shinobi beside the big pit did not realize that Zhaojian had escaped from the swamp. It turns out that the fruit teleport is used like this. Zhaojian suddenly realized in his heart. He had never actively used elementalization before. Therefore, it has not been able to develop the ability of fruit teleportation. Originally thought, this skill is difficult to develop. Unexpectedly, the so-called teleportation is actually active elementalization, and then it becomes a photon to move. This is too simple and rude, right? There was also a wry smile in Zhaojian's heart. If it was not about to be buried just now, then subconsciously, the elementalization was actively used. He didn't know how long he would be circumvented in the misunderstanding. You guys really helped a lot. As a thank you, I will let you die under this trick. Looking down, the four rock shinobi and Zhaojian who were still looking at the caves laughed comfortably. The sound spread to the bottom, and they were all startled at once. Nani, when did you get out of the swamp? Wenya and the other four followed the sound and quickly raised their heads. Everyone was terrified. If Zhaojian shoots down with a flash of light at this time, they will all die with no corpses. Earth-style iron cannonball. Earth-style rocks and bon. After reacting, Wenya Yifan quickly retorted. Since the opponent did not launch an attack, then at this moment, it is an opportunity for one's own side. Because the opponent at this time is in the air with nowhere to hide. Countless rock fragments, after finishing writing the teeth in the seal, all shot at Zhaojian in the sky. The dense number directly covers the path of Zhaojian's fall. Speed is weight. Have you ever been kicked by the speed of light? Ignoring the rubble and rocks coming from the face, Zhaojian suddenly smiled at the rock shinobi. Speed is weight. Have you ever been kicked by the speed of light? As soon as Zhaojian's voice fell, his body instantly turned into a photon. Directly from the attack of the rock fragments, straight across, come over. Almost in the blink of an eye, I came to the rock shinobi's side below, recondensed the human form. Kick at the speed of light. Zhaojian, who condensed and formed, lifted up the golden calf. He kicked him directly and kicked his side. The 4 rock shinobi at this time are still looking up at the sky, keeping the previous action of looking at Zhaojian. Unconsciously, the latter had crossed the distance between the 2 sides and appeared beside them. Boom! A violent collision sounded. On the contrary, he was hit by Zhaojian with a heavy kick on his head and kicked out directly. And at the speed of breaking through the sound barrier, he smashed into the rock shinobi army watching from a distance. Boom! A louder noise came from rock shinobi's army. After being kicked upside down, he not only killed 2 people, but also smashed the ground out of a big hole. And his head was also dented by kicking. Obviously, he was also killed directly. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark. Quote, until this time, the remaining 3 rock shinobi turned their heads in response. I saw Zhaojian standing beside them with his shiny right leg. The cold sweat burst out. The hairs stood upside down in an instant. Horror, unbelievable, and horrified emotions immediately filled the hearts of the 3 of them. Oh, you can't wear samurai uniforms anymore. This dress is too loose, it seems that my legs are not long enough. Zhaojian's slightly playful voice sounded beside the 3 rock shinobi. Suddenly, they woke them up from the panic. Run! Sho shouted in horror. The 3 of them shot in 3 different directions in an instant. At this point they finally realized that they had no hope of victory. If you don't run now, it will be no different from suicide. Want to go now? It's too late. Zhaojian did not rush to pursue, but said with a slight regret. As soon as he thought, the photons began to accumulate on his calf. In an instant, a flickering cross light condensed under Zhaojian's feet. Kick at the speed of light. Zhaojian gave a secret cry in his heart. The photons accumulated on his calf were kicked and shot out by him. The laser, which was as thick as the mouth of a bull, instantly hit the path where Dongxiren escaped. Rumble. The golden mushroom, the cloud rises into the sky. The violent photon explosion enveloped a range of tens of meters. The Dongxiren who fled was also swallowed under the flames of the explosion. He didn't even make a sound of panic, and he was killed instantly. East death. Shumu Pai was about to crack and roar. Hearing the loud noise, he quickly glanced back. I just saw Dongxiren, who was submerged by the explosion of golden light. Allah, are you enjoying the fireworks? The joking sound rang in Hunter's ears, causing his scalp to explode. Just as he turned his head back in horror, he saw a dazzling golden light flashing before his eyes. Puff! A huge head detached directly from the neck and rose into the sky. In a daze, the hunter saw a headless body, running quickly on the ground. He knew that it was his body. Before his consciousness disappeared, Hunter's heart was full of unwillingness. As an elite Jonin, he is also the owner of an explosive succession. His strongest strength is undoubtedly the melee attack. But since the fighting broke out between the 2 sides, after the first collision, he was directly knocked out. After the entire battle, his only shot was actually a punch and a half-cut slash. This can't even hurt a single hair of the other party. How can this make him willing? Earth-style rock shinobi technique. Winya, who was also attracted by the explosion, was so frightened that he quickly got into the ground and sneaked into the ground. At this time, on the ground, he can no longer feel safe. Alala, it's really troublesome. I should have solved you first. After the sword killed the hunter, Zhaojian teleported over immediately without stopping. But it was still a step too late, letting Winya sneak into the ground. This made Zhaojian also slightly regretted. In the end, the 3 rock shinobi Jonin, the other 2 were injured in their arms and couldn't get the seal, only the teeth were intact. But he didn't think about it well and kept him till the end, instead letting him escape. An anti-sama, Master Dongsad, Master Hunter. Shouts of horror were heard one after another among the onlookers rock shinobi. The situation of the battle was too violent, and it happened too fast. Until now, the rock shinobi crowd onlookers realized this. With their eyesight, in fact, they couldn't see exactly what happened in the field. They didn't realize what was going on until they were kicked over by Zhaojian. They were stupefied for a moment. Then they saw golden lights flickering in the field. Then he was buried in the sea of flames, and the hunter was separated by the corpse. 6 Jonin and elite Jonin besieged and killed 1 person, but the enemy was beheaded and killed 5 people. Only 1 person escaped by sneaking. This made the rock shinobi who watched the game feel as if they were dreaming, so illusory and unreal. Ha 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 ha, it's so happy. Yes, Zhaojian-sama is really too powerful. Unlike the rock shinobi, everyone cheered in the Konoha trench. The power of Zhaojian also shocked everyone in Konoha. Their vision is slightly better than that of rock shinobi, so they can roughly see the process of Zhaojian slaying the enemy. That guy is simply so powerful that it makes no sense. During the whole battle, only when Zhaojian was trapped in the quagmire, they couldn't see it. For the rest of the whole process, they all saw a rough idea. That is, Zhaojian was in the advantage throughout the whole process, and at the end, he also powerfully killed several Jonin from Iwagakure. Even the last rock shinobi was almost doomed. The result of this battle made the Konoha shinobi all very excited. For the past few days, they have been worried every day. When did they feel so happy? Captain Yamaki, we don't need to support it now. That guy, even if he really can't beat Jinchuriki, but if he wants to leave, no one can stop him, right? Several Konoha Jonin also gathered together and laughed happily. Before they were worried about Zhaojian. But I didn't expect that the guy was so powerful. It seems that my worries before waiting for others are completely unnecessary. Yeah, this is really too strong. Hear the words of my companion. Mimura Hamaki was also dumbfounded. After experiencing World War II, he naturally met many cage-level powerhouses. A cage-level expert who fought against several Jonin, he has also seen it several times. But like Zhaojian, who can crush or even kill in seconds, he is really the first to see. I want to see, how long can you hold your breath in the soil? Zhaojian walked slowly, and the cross light on his fingertips kept spinning. The perception of Kagura's heart's eyes has also been locked in the Wanya moving under the ground. Although Earth-style ninjutsu can move underground, that's right. But you can't change your breath in the ground, so people naturally can't, and they always hide under the ground. As long as Wanya dared to get close to the ground, Zhaojian would explode his head with a laser. And if he dare not come out, then Zhaojian is ready to suffocate him alive. Anyway, before they wanted to bury themselves. Jet feet. Just when Zhaojian's attention was locked to follow Wanya's movement, a loud shout suddenly sounded. Immediately afterwards, a red figure burst through the air. A pair of big feet kicked directly towards Zhaojian's face. On the back of the red figure, 393, brought a long string of white smoke. What? Looking at the big feet close at hand, Zhaojian frowned and turned into a photon and teleported to the side. Although he didn't hide, he was completely fine. But even if it's okay, he can't take it safely. Without kicking Zhaojian's figure, he kicked the air and flew directly to the rear. So it's you. Why, now I feel heartache Jonin, do you want to do it yourself? The photons regrouped not far away. In the blink of an eye, Zhaojian returned to its original state. Seeing the 2 big men who were about to double-team him, Zhaojian instantly understood their identities. Before, his perception was all concentrated on the body of the lower teeth on the ground, which made him not notice that someone was approaching him. After regaining their perception at this time, the identity of the 2 of them is also ready to be revealed. Because they all exude the smell of tail beasts. There is no doubt that the 2 are the 4-5 tails Jinchuriki of Iwagakure. At a young age, I have the strength of cage level. I have to say that the country of fire is really a treasure place for educating people. The man who kicked the air, a jet, forcibly stopped not far away. Hearing Zhaojian's ridicule, he did not choose to answer. But with a solemn expression, he shifted the topic to other directions. On the battlefield, it is normal for both sides to fight each other. So although he was indignant in his heart, he didn't want to express this emotion. Cage-level powerhouses utter ruthless talks with each other, but they will make themselves look very low. Why, do you who provoke the war like to say this kind of thing? Hearing what Han said, Zhaojian was rather speechless. On the battlefield of Sunagakure before, the old fellow Chiyo seemed to have said the same thing. Oh, has anyone else said the same thing? By the way, I haven't asked your name yet. With a strength like you, Konoha can't be an unnamed person, right? Seeing that Lao Zi hadn't fully arrived yet, Han could only postpone the time. Although he is known as a steam ninja, with the help of armored thrusters, his speed and power are extremely fast. But after his sneak attack just now, he knew he couldn't take Zhaojian alone. The difference between the speed of the two is not even a bit. Therefore, he can only hack into his arms and wait for Lao Zi to arrive as soon as possible. The last person who said this was Sunagakure's Chiyo, but she is dead. Zhaojian said with a smile. But when someone asked his name again, he was too lazy to answer. How many times has this been asked since the war began? The feeling of reporting my name every time is really very lacking. Illustration. What? Chiyo is dead. Hearing what Zhaojian said, Han was a little shocked. Although he has never had an intersection with Sand Shinobi's Chiyo. But the information of cage-level personnel in each village actually knows each other. And Chiyo's strength, in the cage level of each village, it can be regarded as a top-notch existence. Died. Although I didn't die directly on the battlefield, but it was also very cool. Zhaojian joked with a smile. Seeing Lao Zi getting closer and closer, he probably guessed what Han was paying attention to. But Zhaojian didn't care. With elementalization, he is already invincible. After taking control of the teleporting ability at this moment, he was not shy at hitting two Jinchuriki. The two chatted with each other without saying a word. The atmosphere in the field suddenly became a little weird. It seems that this is not on the battlefield, and the relationship between the two is not hostile. This made both Rock Shinobi and Konoha who were watching from a distance felt a weird feeling. Papa. At this moment, Lao Zi finally rushed to the scene. The two finally formed a double team against Zhaojian. What Sunagakure has been defeated? Han was delaying time, and he asked Zhaojian for information. Hearing that Sunagakure had signed a defeat agreement more than 2 days ago, Hanton was shocked again. Lao Zi, who had just caught up, frowned in confusion when he heard Han's exclamation. Are you serious? After the shock, Han looked at Zhaojian suspiciously. After all, they belong to one of the 5 major countries. Although the strength of each village is different from each other, it has not reached the level of crushing. Sunagakure, how could it be defeated so quickly? Believe it or not, it's up to you. Zhaojian shrugged and answered with a smile. The arrival of Lao Zi did not cause him the slightest fluctuation. As for this information, it will be delivered tomorrow at the latest, so there is no need to hide it at all. Seeing Zhaojian's casual appearance, Han's expression was a little heavy. Before thinking of the other party, he really came from the direction of the country of rain, and he believed in his heart. Okay, let's stop here for small talk. Your purpose of delaying time on purpose is not to wait for this guy. Zhaojian pointed to Lao Zi, who had just arrived, and directly debunked Han's previous purpose. Since you know that I am delaying time, then why do you want to get in the way? Hearing Zhaojian's words, Han's brows also frowned at this time. Because of you. It's not my opponent at all. Zhaojian's voice suddenly became contemptuous. After merging his hands in front of him, he suddenly slashed to the left and right. A big sword shining with golden light was instantly held in his hand. What nonsense with him. Do it directly. Seeing Han hesitated to speak and stopped, as if he wanted to say something, the grumpy Lao Zi suddenly scolded. After a squat, chakra burst out of him. The billowing magma also instantly covered the surface of his body. The strength of Zhaojian was already obvious to all when the two arrived. Therefore, Lao Zi didn't care about it in the slightest, but directly opened the lava-style chakra mode. Everyone don't watch. Retreat all to me. Winya, who had already drilled out of the ground, saw Rock Shinobi's army still onlookers, and immediately shouted orders. The cage-level battle at this time was already a far cry from their previous battles. And among them, there are 2 Jinchuriki. If you accidentally shoot a tailed beast bomb during the battle. For the Rock Shinobi army, it was a disaster. And when I heard Winya, Rock Shinobi felt very unwilling. 5 Jonin were beheaded, and 2 cage-level powerhouses were stunned. They originally wanted to watch the battle carefully, hoping that the cage-level powerhouses would find their way back. But now that Winya had given the order, they had no choice but to retreat backwards obediently. Captain Yamaki, Rock Shinobi's army retreated back. In the Konoha trench, a ninja said to Mimura Hamaki with a smile. Rock Shinobi, who retreated like a tide-in, let all of them unconsciously breathe a sigh of relief. Mimura Hamaki nodded. He naturally knew why Rock Shinobi had to withdraw. However, Konoha's trench is located high, so there is no need to worry about being affected by the battle. Puff hiss, puff, seeing that Lao Zi has entered a state of combat. On the back of Han's armor, 2 white steam burst suddenly. Before entering the tail beastization, most of his combat power came from this armor. Using his own boil style as the energy source and driving the armor's thrusters, he can have one of the best power and speed officially in the ninja world. Come on, let me see. As Jinchuriki, what kind of ability can you have? Zhaojian waved the sky cloud sword and opened his hands openly. In his expression, he didn't pay any attention to the two of them. Lava-style burning river rock technique. The grumpy Lao Zi, seeing Zhaojian so arrogant, took the lead and angrily shot. The moment the knot printing of both hands is completed, he opened his mouth and spit out more than a dozen magma fireballs towards Zhaojian. On the way the magma fireball hits, drops of red liquid continued to fall down, and the ground was instantly burned, making a pee-pee sound. Wind-style vacuum sword. Zhaojian turned his lightsaber upside down and swiped his backhand to the right. A huge wind wall instantly released its hands and whizzed out to the magma ball. Boom! The ninjutsu of the two sides collided violently with each other. Like fireworks, the magma ball burst open in the air, and was swept towards Shishu Lao Zi. Boom boom boom. At this moment, the magma balls that continued to hit the rear all smashed against the wind wall. In an instant, the wind wall was burned through, and the magma ball burned towards Zhaojian again. Ah, I almost forgot, fire style can restrain wind style. Zhaojian spoke casually, but in his expression, he didn't even feel nervous at all. Then try it, can you burn through the slash as well? Rumble. After the voice fell, Zhaojian swung the lightsaber suddenly again. A golden slash that was more than 20 meters high, roared out in succession. When the magma and the slash collided, they were instantly submerged by the slash. Illustration. Afterwards, he slashed and castrated, and roared directly at Lao Zi. The Jet Mountain strikes. Just when Zhaojian looked at Lao Zi. I want to see how he coped with the slash. A loud shout suddenly sounded from the top of Zhaojian's head. I saw Hen raised his right leg high, and pulled out 2 long white smoke behind him, and with a force of breaking through the air, it fell directly towards Zhaojian. The speed was so fast that there was even a sonic boom on the legs. What? Perceiving Han's leg, he is about to kick himself. When Zhaojian thought, it turned into light particles and moved to the side in an instant. Rumble. Another time kicked the empty man and hit the ground with a heavy kick. The ground suddenly broke apart, and the aftermath and dust of the attack spread out in all directions. With this simple blow, the damage caused is greater than the power of a landmine. Oh, it's terrible. Your speed is almost breaking the sound barrier, right? Zhaojian, who was reconditioned, gave a generous compliment. If it weren't for the fortunately controlling teleport before, just this kick can kick him directly on the spot. Of course, he, who is passively elemental, also has nothing to do. What's the matter with your speed? However, Han was not at all happy when he heard Zhaojian's praise. The 2 consecutive attacks were about to hit the opponent, and they were kicked in an instant. This made his heart full of incomprehension and dignity. I am not speed, I am teleporting. Zhaojian smiled faintly, and stretched his hands left and right, holding the sky cloud sword in his hand again. He really didn't lie. When the light particles were moving, he could no longer be called speed, so it had to be called teleport to be appropriate. Rumble. After the voice fell, the lightsaber in Zhaojian's hand also swung out suddenly. The golden slash roared out of his hand again. Puff hiss, puff. 2 steams spouted from Han's back. The thruster of the armor directly pushed him out. Kick at the speed of light. Just as Han dodged the slash, the light in front of him suddenly brightened. Immediately afterwards, a thigh filled with golden light quickly enlarged in his pupils. Nani. The man who was too late to dodge could only raise his hand to protect his face quickly. The armor under his arm expelled 2 steams, speeding up his movements. As soon as his hands touched his face, Zhaojian's soles of feet also drew towards his face. Boom, dang. The loud bang of the heavy blow was accompanied by a strange cracking sound. The Han who was kicked by Zhaojian flew directly backwards at the same speed. It smashed two huge boulders in the middle, and then drew a distance on the ground before it stopped. Wow! After sliding on the ground for a certain distance, Han finally stopped. Just when he was about to get up, he suddenly felt abnormally bored in his chest, so he opened his mouth and vomited a mouthful of blood. The armor that originally wrapped his arm had been completely shattered at this time. Moreover, his arms were still swelling rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. In order to avoid Zhaojian's slash, he was originally in a forward state. And Zhaojian kicked from his front. It was almost two forces colliding with each other. If it wasn't for his armor, it was hard enough. At this moment, let alone his arms, the moment he hit two boulders, he was already killed on the spot. Alala, your life is so hard, is it all right? Seeing the Han who staggered to stand up after vomiting a mouthful of blood, Zhaojian couldn't help being a little surprised. After all, this is a high offense and low imitation, majoring in the world of chakra. In his cognition of the world, a person who can be safe and sound after breaking two rocks. That is really rare. Quote. It's okay for you to call this. Both labor and management were seriously injured and vomited blood, okay. The man who was struggling to get up, forcibly endured the sharp pain in his arm, and was speechless in his heart. He felt that in his arms, he seemed to have broken bones. However, he, who has a more stable temperament, just didn't dare to show it at will. Han, are you okay? Until now, Lao Zikai overcame Zhaojian's previous slash and rushed to Zhaojian. He and Han are two different types of ninjas. The strongest thing about Han is his speed and strength. And Lao Zi's most powerful is his attack and defense. Speed is not the advantage he is good at. So before Zhaojian and Han's brief confrontation, he was also unable to keep up with the speed, so he could only watch Han get kicked. I'm fine. Seeing Lao Zi rushing towards Zhaojian, Han replied loudly. Then, enduring the severe pain, his hands merged in front of him with a sound of bang. A beam of red light burst into the sky, and chakra burst out of his body directly. Oh, is this tail animalization? Seeing the Han wearing a black and red chakra coat and growing a tail behind him, Zhaojian looked with interest. In fact, if he wanted to stop it just now, he could teleport over immediately and kick Han away again. But Zhaojian did not do so. Because he has never seen the appearance of a tail beast after traveling through so many years, so he is naturally very curious. This can be regarded as deliberately giving Han a chance to perform. Lava-style submarine needle. Just as Zhaojian looked interested and looked at the beastization of Hanwei, Lao Zi also rushed to his side. With a burst of drink, the lava in the whole body quickly concentrated on the right fist, and then struck Zhaojian suddenly. Under the intense high temperature, where the right fist passed, the surrounding space was burnt and distorted by the magma fist. Kick at the speed of light. With a thought, Zhaojian moved 1 meter to the side. Then he rotated on the spot, raised his foot to Lao Zi beside him, and kicked it directly. Lava style. Granite. Lao Zi, who missed a single hit, quickly spread magma all over his body. Illustration. And the color of the magma quickly became dark and hard. Quote. Exclamation mark. Quote. At this time, Zhaojian's spinning kick also kicked Lao Zi's back. In an instant, he kicked Lao Zi and the man who was facing him. Boom. The Han who rushed to the tail beast turned into a beast, and Lao Zi, who was shot out, smashed directly together. The two rolled to each other on the ground and slid backward again. A straight line of smoke and dust was also lifted up because the two of them were sliding on the ground. My dear, you are so hard. Zhaojian frowned and murmured. Then he slowly retracted the raised right leg. Gang-o kicked Lao Zi's body. It felt like iron had reached the iron body. The hardness was almost a few levels higher than that of Han's armor. No wonder he was able to resist Naruto's Rasengan unscathed in the original book. Rumble. Just when Zhaojian's legs were just put down, Lao Zi and Han also hit a large rock. The rock burst instantly and a big hole was smashed. And the two figures of Han and Lao Zi plunged directly into the pit of the boulder. Countless pieces of gravel fell from above. In an instant, they buried the two of them. Master Zhaojian has cheated. This is too strong, right? The two opponents are also cage-level powerhouses. Yeah, I didn't expect the cage-level powerhouse to be knocked into the air so easily. Shocked words and voices of cold breath continued to ring in the Konoha trenches, although they couldn't see the details of the battle between the three in the field. But when Zhaojian closed his legs, they could still see very clearly. Undoubtedly, Zhaojian kicked the opponent's 2 cage-level players by himself. Seeing the dust set off in the field and the boulders being constantly broken, the Konoha shinobi people all sighed the power of Zhaojian. At this time, they had already unconsciously used the honorific name for Zhaojian. This is the respect and look up to our own strong people. The boulder burst again. Rock fragments splashed out all around. The 2 people who were hit by Zhaojian appeared again. Allah, it's really surprising. The defenses of both of you are terribly high. After the smoke dissipated, Zhaojian pretended to exaggerate. Han and Laozi didn't suffer much injury except that they were a little embarrassed at this time. It seemed that a simple attack could not break the defense of the 2 of them. Especially the old purple granite. That's really hard 1 or 4. Han, what should I do now? The situation is a bit bad, how Nuo Jiao? Looking at Zhaojian standing in front of him, Laozi asked with a solemn expression. Because of the opponent's speed, it was too fast. It can be said that they are already invincible. Roar. Hearing Laozi's question, Han let out a low growl. He had already entered the tail beastization, and he couldn't speak at this time. Illustration. Can only make a sound like a beast roar. I understand, it seems that it can only be so. After a few breaths of silence, Laozi nodded Zhu with a heavy face. What do you know? You still have to eat my flash first. Just when Laozi was silent, Zhaojian suddenly photonized into the sky. Ba Kai Chong Go Yu. With both hands gathered in front of him, they opened quickly, and densely packed light bullets poured out, hitting Han and Laozi overwhelmingly. Although their defenses are very strong, Zhaojian still wants to try whether they can withstand the continuous bombardment. Chapter 161. Boom 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 boom. The light bullets are constantly bombing down from the sky. The earth uttered screams. The golden flames are also constantly raging on the ground. And Han and Laozi were shrouded in the center of the explosion. However, the moment the light hit the ground, Zhaojian saw Laozi spit out the magma from his mouth, forming a large semicircular bowl, enveloping both of them. The continuous bombardment of the light bomb on the big bowl made the big bowl tremble constantly, but it could not break the defense of the big bowl. Is this the same granite trick from before? Seeing this scene, Zhaojian frowned. Then he settled down and landed from the sky. The ground at this time has long been beaten with pits and sores. But there are no cracks in the big bowl, and the strength of the defense can be seen by Madara. Boom. Just after Zhaojian accepted the recruitment, the big bowl was suddenly lifted off. The red light formed by the 2 chakras shot directly into the sky and penetrated the clouds. I saw that Laozi, like Han, entered the tail beastization mode. And at this time, behind the 2 of them, 2 long tails were stretched out. The chakra of the tail beast is really huge. But after entering the state of being a tail beast, you shouldn't be able to use ninjutsu, right? As Zhaojian fell from the air, he carefully observed the 2 of them. Although the beast-like coat has a very strong defense force, it is by no means inferior to the old purple granite. At this time, he abandoned ninjutsu and started the tail beast state. In Zhaojian's view, it was a fatal flaw. Roar. Boom, boom. Han and Laozi were on all fours. Raising his head to face the falling Zhaojian, he roared and roared. Immediately afterwards, the 4 claws slammed the ground and shot directly at Zhaojian. The speed was so fast that he broke the sound barrier in an instant, and pulled out a long white gas behind him. Abandoning ninjutsu and defense, just to increase speed. But you are still far behind me in terms of speed. Zhaojian turned into a photon again, and easily passed the attack of the 2. Under the light particles, although ACDA can only move in a straight line, the speed is not comparable to supersonic speed. Bump, bump. After the 2 people who hit the air fell to the ground, they twisted again from the ground and rushed towards Zhaojian. The 4 claws stepped on the ground and ran, which also caused a burst of rumbling sounds. Sky Kong Yunjian. Zhaojian opened his hands and held the lightsaber in his hands. Since they chose to attack in close combat, Zhaojian naturally chose to stay with him to the end. After all, as a master of kendo, Close combat is also a strong point for him. Papa. After the feet fell to the ground, Zhaojian squatted slightly and made a knife-drawing motion. At this moment, Han and Laozi also burst in front of him. I Zan. Zhaojian trampled on the ground suddenly, and his body dived forward. Although he did not enter the state of photonization, his speed was not as fast as the two beastly-tailed. But the lightsaber in his hand is not slow in the slightest. Even faster than the two who broke through the sound barrier, they made 3 points faster. After all, the most powerful part of Atomic Samurai's kendo lies in the speed of slashing. Puff! The golden light flashed by Zhaojian and the two beastly tails. At this time, they staggered out of the opponent's back. An arm wrapped in dark red chakra flew up into the sky. And Zhaojian's right rib was also hit with a big golden hole. But he had a thought. The golden light had not spread out, and instantly gathered back on his wounds. Roar, roar, roar. A painful roar sounded from behind Zhaojian. Just like when a beast was injured, it was angry and roaring. It's so fast to hide fast. My knife was obviously cut at the neck. Does it still inherit the instincts of wild beasts after the tail is transformed into a beast? Zhaojian's slightly regretful voice sounded leisurely. Suddenly, Han and Laozi, who had been beheaded, turned their heads quickly in horror. Ho ho ho. Nani, didn't I penetrate his chest? See Zhaojian standing unscathed. In Han's heart, he was very shocked and puzzled. But the puzzled sound he made was a roar like a beast. Laozi, who had a broken arm, was also full of question marks. It stands to reason that Zhaojian passed between the two of them, and one of them would always hit Zhaojian. But at this time, he didn't have any ass, which is very puzzling. Kick at the speed of light. At the moment when the two of them were puzzled and stunned, Zhaojian directly photonized and teleported to their side. Then lift a leg. Heavy kick on Han's body. Boom. Under the violent collision, the dark red tail beast's coat ruptured, revealing the red armor that Han wore. And Han was also given a kick by Zhaojian and kicked directly into the distance. Double defense. Zhaojian frowned. Although this kick kicked Chakra's coat loose. But it didn't break the armor on Han. So the damage caused by this blow is really a bit unsatisfactory. Roar. Laozi who reacted. Waving his right arm intact, he twisted and hit Zhaojian. However, Zhaojian did not hide, and let him hit his chest with a punch. Boom. Zhaojian's chest exploded. The golden light filled the sky behind him. And his smashed chest was also exuding the light of xenon chlorine. Nani. Laozi let out a roar. The voice was full of confusion and confusion. During this battle with Rock Shinobi, Zhaojian never used passive elementalization from beginning to end. So this is also the first time that it was revealed in Laozi's eyes. Ah, you found out one of my information. Zhaojian had a big smile on his face. As soon as the thought moved, the golden light that was shot out of the sky flew back to his shattered chest in an instant. Then the golden light flashed, and the wound returned to its original shape in the blink of an eye. Sky Kong Yunjian, seeing Laozi staring at his chest unbelievably. Zhaojian smiled, then merged his hands and pulled out the lightsaber abruptly. Danger. Laozi's heart was tight, and he wanted to speed up his escape. From the lightsaber in Zhaojian's hand, he smelled a very dangerous breath. At this moment, he is in a state of tailbeastization and cannot use granite for defense. Or it should be said that he, who broke his arm, can no longer seal the seal at this moment. So when he saw Zhaojian pull out the lightsaber, his first reaction was to dodge. However, when he just jumped back, Zhaojian's lightsaber also waved down at him. Chong. Rumble. A golden slash that was more than 20 meters high and 6 or 7 meters wide roared out of Zhaojian's hand. Laozi, who had just jumped to the rear, was immediately submerged by the slash. Then he was severely slashed, crushed to the ground, and pressed all the way towards the distance. Ho 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 ho. The beast was wounded and horrified, which roared from Laozi's mouth. Although he wanted to resist desperately, he wanted to escape the oppression of the new attack. But since he was severely injured by a severed arm, he couldn't resist such a huge slash at all. Boom, boom, boom. Wherever the golden light passed, whether rock or mud, all were split in half in the middle. The slash glided on the ground hundreds of meters away. On the battlefield, a ditch of hundreds of meters in the sky was also cut out. And Lao Zi, who was crushed by the slash, didn't know how many rocks had been crushed along the way. When the slashing gradually diminished and disappeared, he was already severely injured and unconscious. This is thanks to his being Jinchuriki and possessing a huge chakra. Old Master Z. Old Master Z. Behind the Iwagakure position, a group of Jonin stood together. Witnessing that Lao Zi was submerged by the slash, and finally lay motionless on the ground, everyone's eyes were cracked and roared. No one can think of it. 2 cage levels of one side shot at the same time, and they couldn't beat the other one. In everyone's hearts, they felt deathly depressed. The body seemed to be crushed by a mountain, so that they couldn't breathe. 2 cage level strong players can't beat each other. After that, who else can stop the opponent on the battlefield? Lois, hurry up and order the army to rescue. A Jonin looked at the Lois and said anxiously. After watching the battle for so long, they have a full understanding of Zhaojian's strength. If you just rely on them like Jonin to go there, it's probably just a direct delivery of food. So if you want to rescue Lao Zi, you have to lead an army to crush it together. Whirring. No, the opponent's attack range is too wide. Leading the army to rescue will only increase your casualties indefinitely. Hearing the words of his companion, Huang Tu gasped like a cow's answer. Han handed over the army to him, and he could only put the army's life first. No one knows how much pressure he has endured in his heart, so he made this decision cruelly. Are we going to watch the old Master Z fight to death on the battlefield? Jonin turned his head and looked at the Lois in disbelief. He didn't expect Huang Tu, but he didn't plan to go to rescue Lao Zi. Illustration. Leave everything to Master Han, and Master Han will rescue him. Huang Tu gritted his teeth and replied very hard. At this moment, he can only deposit hope to Han, who is also on the battlefield, although it seems that hope is really very slim at this moment. When the other Jonin heard what Huang Tu said, they all fell silent. Quickly feel the ninja. Quickly give me a feel for the opponent's cage level powerhouse, and see what his situation is now. In the Konoha trench, after seeing Lao Zi not getting up, Mimura Hamaki suddenly shouted in excitement. After all, the tail beast is a symbol of strength for the villages, and the big villages have been competing with each other all the year round. If this time, Iwagakure Jinchuriki can be captured, then the bargaining chip in post-war negotiations will surely turn up a few times. Report to Lord Yamaki, the other party's breath is very weak, and it should have been severely injured. A perceiving ninja took a closer look, and then reported with an excited expression. His thoughts were not as much as Mimura Hamaki's consideration. But the enemy fell a cage level, which was enough to excite everyone. After all, cage level strength is the top combat power of their respective villages. K9 Ja, now give you an order, immediately go and bring back the other party's cage level. Hearing the words of the perception ninja, Mimura Hamaki suddenly gave orders in a passionate voice. Understood. A puffy response sounded. A man with red stripes on his face rushed down the trench on a big yellow dog. Although going to the battlefield of cage-level confrontation at this time, there are some dangers. But compared with Jinchuriki, who captured the other side, this risk is worth his risk. Roar, old Z. Han let out an angry roar. He was kicked into the air by Zhaojian and just got up. I happened to witness Lao Zi being slashed out of hundreds of meters. With Lao Zi already severely injured, he was not sure whether Lao Zi was alive or dead. Now you are left. So, what are you going to do? Zhaojian first used Kagura's eyes to perceive Lao Zi's state, then smiled and turned his head to the roaring man. If Lao Zi did not enter the tail animalization, but used granite for defense, then he can still give Zhaojian a little trouble. But in order to catch up with Zhaojian's speed, he took the initiative to give up the powerful defense. For him, this was a fatal flaw, because even if he reached the supersonic level, he couldn't keep up with Zhaojian in speed. Oh! Roar, roar! Hearing Zhaojian's jokes, Han's white beast pupils were trembling. At this moment, he already understood the gap between the two sides. He and Lao Zi joined forces at the same time, and they were both crushed and defeated. Now he is the only one left, so he has almost no chance of winning. Roar, seeing that Zhaojian did not attack, but standing on the spot, waiting for one's own move. So Han hesitated for a while, and suddenly roared. Chakra was under the surge, and a red tail grew again behind him. After the state of three tails was turned on, waves of malice and evil thoughts washed through his will, making his mind almost lost. Although the tail beastization has more tails, the strength can be increased by one level. But this is also 397, accompanied by huge risks. Because while gaining strong power, it is also easier to be corroded and confused by the tail beast's will. Thereby, the seal was unlocked and the tail beast was released. At that time, it is no longer him who dominates the body, but a beast that hates his own village. And the state of the three tails is also the highest limit for Han to maintain his sanity. PP. After a long and deep exhalation, Han opened his mouth and exhaled a white muddy breath. Then he glanced at Zhaojian again, and then closed the three tails in front of his forehead. A large amount of red chakra and blue chakra, like water droplets, slowly condensed on his forehead. It didn't take long for a high concentration chakra ball to gradually take shape. Tailed beast bomb. Just let me see it too. Zhaojian raised his right leg. Jingguang also began to accumulate quickly on the calf. Suddenly, a flashing cross light, just under his feet, kept spinning. Wow Wang, the big yellow dog, who was carrying the dog's forehead from the Konoha trench, suddenly stopped in place. The animal's instinctive perception of danger makes it too scared to move on at this moment. Huang Wan, what's wrong with you? Some puzzled dog's jaws kept stroking the big yellow dog's neck. However, the big yellow dog kept howling, whooping, shaking his limbs and refused to walk forward. Feel the fear of his ninja beast. While comforting it, the dog's jaw raised his head and looked into the field. I saw Zhaojian and Han who were accumulating their energy at a distance of several hundred meters. Obviously, both sides were preparing big moves. Moreover, the stones on the ground around the two of them began to move constantly under the power of the two of them. Huang Wan, go back quickly. After seeing the status of the two people in the field, Anujiatan hurriedly shouted to his pet dog. This attack hasn't been hit yet, and the power has already caused a lot of vision. He really couldn't imagine how terrifying the two following attacks would be. After hearing what the dog's jaw said, the big yellow dog quickly twisted around and withdrew back to a distance of tens of meters. It didn't stop on the spot until it felt safe. You tailed beast bomb, it seems a little impractical. Zhaojian raised the cross golden calf and said silently to the Han who was still accumulating energy. I don't know if it's because of Han, who is not familiar with tailed beast bomb. He has charged his energy to the limit and waited for a while. But Han actually hasn't condensed yet. Illustration. If he attacked the past at this time, Han had absolutely no room to fight back. Boom. Not long after Zhaojian's voice fell, Han finally finished with his strength. After the tailed beast bomb became a whole black ball, the space around him seemed unable to bear the weight, and the ground was instantly crushed to a depth of several centimeters. The momentum is extremely vast. Come on, I've been waiting for you for a long time, don't let me down. Zhaojian raised his calf high and pointed it at the man who was also ready to go. If you didn't want to try the power of tailed beast bomb, Zhaojian had already shot out a laser before. How can he keep his energy safe and sound for so long? Boom. Han did not tremble when he heard Zhaojian's words. After lowering his head and aiming at Zhaojian, he violently shot the tailed beast bomb 0. The speed is so fast that it directly broke through the two-layer sound barrier. Where the tailed beast bomb passed, the ground was covered by wind and waves, plowing a straight channel. Kick at the speed of light. When Han shot the tailed beast bomb, Zhaojian kicked his calf straight. A beam of laser with a thick bull mouth, emitting a dazzling light, lost straight at the tailed beast bomb. The speed is faster than tailed beast bomb, and the ground is also affected by wind and waves, forming a deep trench. Buzzing. It was almost in the blink of an eye. The attack of the two people spanned hundreds of meters, and they collided fiercely. The entire battlefield fell into an abnormal silence in an instant. Countless white rays of light, like stars, constantly flicker around the collision of the attack. It indicates that the next thing will never be so simple. Everyone in the battlefield camp on both sides held their breath at this moment, watching the position that was constantly shining with white light. Rumble. After 2 seconds, the abnormal silence disappeared. The violent explosion sounded violently. The orange-red flames and the golden-yellow flames bite each other in the center of the explosion. A huge mushroom cloud with a diameter of several hundred meters directly broke through the clouds and rushed into the sky. Under the aftermath of the explosion, the rocks and soil on the ground were directly pushed in all directions. A strong wind of dozens of levels also spread out from the center of the explosion in all directions. The trees within 100 meters of the explosion range were all uplifted by the violent wind. Lao Zi, who fell unconscious on the ground, was even blown out by the strong wind. Huang Wan, quickly use Ya Tong Ya. The dog's jaw hissed and his lungs screamed. He thought he had retreated tens of meters and was already in a safe position. But the sight of natural disasters in front of him still frightened him incomparably. After ordering the big yellow dog to drill a hole on the ground, he disregarded his image and even crawled into the hole. At this time, a violent gust of wind whizzed past the ground. One person and one dog survived the danger. Everyone, return them all to me in the trenches. On the position of Konoha village, because Zhaojian was already in sight, everyone climbed out of the trenches to watch the battle. Seeing the squally wind coming, Mimura Hamaki suddenly roared and ordered. Although the strong wind blows from the center of the explosion to the Konoha position, it has been weakened a lot. But there is also the power of the 7th or 8th gale. Under this mighty wind, if people are not careful, they will also be blown down and injured. So the safest thing to do is to retreat to the trenches to avoid the wind. Hearing Mimura Hamaki's words, all the Konoha shinobi spectators jumped back into the trenches. At this moment, everyone's heart is full of shock. When have they seen such an exaggerated ninjutsu confrontation? This simply refreshed their knowledge of cage-level powerhouses. Get down, everyone get down. On Rock Shinobi's position, the Lois was also hissing and roaring. There are no trenches in their positions. So either lie on the ground and resist the wind, or use the earth style to defend. And Lois undoubtedly chose the first method, because the position they are in is not like Konoha in the high ground. They are on a parallel line with the center of the explosion in the front battlefield. Therefore, the violent wind brought out by the aftermath of the explosion was roaring at them almost at the speed of sound. Under the impact of this kind of speed, if they wanted to set up a defense, it seemed a bit in time not enough. So lying directly on the ground is the best way at the moment. Boom boom, ah, ah 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 ah. However, as soon as Lois's order was issued, the gust of wind had already screamed. Jonin who reacted fast enough, and a small number of Chunin all slumped down. The rest of the Rock Shinobi army were all turned over by the strong wind, and fell to the ground one after another. Fortunately, their distance from the explosion center was slightly farther than Konoha. When the strong wind blows to their place, it has been weakened to about level 6 or 7. So although many people were injured, most of them were just minor abrasions from a fall. Rumble, a giant mushroom cloud soared into the sky. The first aftermath of the explosion shattered all nearby rocks and mud directly. A huge pit with a diameter of 500 or 600 meters was exposed under the mushroom cloud. The raging fire is still biting each other on the huge pit. Just like two ferocious beasts fighting fiercely for their lives, the scene seemed extremely shocking. Ah! After several consecutive photonized teleports, Zhaojian appeared. At this moment, he is at an altitude of several hundred meters. The shock wave generated by the previous explosion, at the moment he hit him, he took the initiative to element and avoid it. And he himself did not expect that after the two attacks collided together, it would cause a big explosion covering a range of hundreds of meters. According to Zhaojian's previous estimation, he has charged up to the limit of the speed of light kick. At most, it can only cause an explosion in an area of about 150 meters in diameter. Unexpectedly, the big move of the two people will produce the effect of 1 + 1 = 3 under the collision of 1 point. As for why one would say 1 + 1, because at the moment, the mushroom cloud in the center of the explosion was half orange-red flames and half golden-yellow flames. Both sides occupied half of the sky. So Zhaojian guessed that the power of Han-tailed beast bomb is probably the same as the power of his own light kick. Han, that guy, wouldn't he die under the impact of the explosion, right? Zhaojian descended slowly from the air. The line of sight has also been scanning around below. Because of the flames produced by the violent explosion, the space below was burned to be distorted and deformed. This caused Zhaojian's perception to be extremely severely disturbed and affected below. So now he has completely lost the trace of Han. However, according to his guess, judging by the shock wave that almost hit him before, Han should have been directly hit by the shock wave. So, maybe he really died. Papa, Zhaojian has been floating in the air. Whenever it drops to a certain distance, he was photonized again and flew high into the sky. At this time, the aftermath of the explosion is still continuing, and the flames have been burning below. So at this time, it is not suitable for landing on the ground. Zhaojian chose to land from the air until dozens of breaths of time passed and the aftermath and flames of the explosion were extinguished. However, in the current battlefield, there was still thick smoke and dust everywhere, which greatly hindered his vision. Boom! At this moment, Zhaojian suddenly heard a strange sound in the distance. Turning his head to look at the sound source, faintly, he could still see a naked fruit man running quickly in the dust of the sky. Who is this Tamar? Under the broad daylight, under the bright sky, are you actually doing the act of destroying the wolf? The picture of spicy eyes caused Zhaojian to quickly turn his head away. And in my heart, he strongly condemned this exhibitionist behavior. But as soon as he finished cursing, Zhaojian reacted immediately. At this moment, besides himself, those who were at the center of the explosion are the only ones left with Han. What? Zhaojian thought. The body suddenly turned into light particles. In the direction of Guonan just now, he moved in an instant. I saw that there was a huge human-shaped hole in the place where Guonan had been seen before. And in the hole, there are scattered red shards. These red fragments are undoubtedly the armor that Han wore before. Kagura's eyes. At this time, without the interference of the flame, Kagura's heart and eyes were liberated. The moment Zhaojian closed his eyes, his perception quickly radiated to the surroundings. I saw a group of fruit men who looked exactly the same, rushing outwards in the smoke and dust of the explosion. Han naked, the exposed body may be due to long time wearing armor, and it also looks extraordinarily fair and dazzling. Shadow clone technique. Zhaojian frowned and muttered to himself. Although Kagura's mind is very perceptive, it also can't distinguish the body of shadow clone. In desperation, he had no choice but to give up. Anyway, I also arrived at the battlefield here, anyway, I will only be in Japan. Thinking of this, Zhaojian shook his head and walked towards the Konoha trench. He had already sensed that a Konoha shinobi riding a big dog had captured Laozi, who was seriously injured and dying. So he didn't need him, and he personally went to bring Laozi back to Konoha's position. Although this battle was run away by Han, it made people a little bit regretful. But the one who killed Rock Shinobi, more than 300 Chunin and 5 Jonin, captured one of them, Jinchuriki, which is a huge gain. Master Zhaojian. Master Zhaojian. When Zhaojian came to Konoha position, he was greeted by the madness and cheers of all Konoha shinobi. The scene was just like the fans he had seen in his previous life, those fans who greeted his idol at the airport. Everyone's faces were filled with excitement and admiration that could not be concealed. I just stuck my face directly and asked Zhaojian for an autograph. The guards these days, everyone has worked hard. Zhaojian waved his hand in a decent way, and responded to all the Konoha shinobi who came up. After a while, everyone cheered with excitement. Although everyone is not very familiar with Zhaojian. But for Zhaojian's response, they were still excited. After all, this is a strong man who crushed 2 Jinchuriki strongly. Since you all know me, then I don't need to introduce myself anymore. I am the commander of the support team sent by the village. The next battlefield will be under my full command. Zhaojian raised his hand to suppress the cheers around him, and then slowly said to everyone. Since the village leaders appointed themselves as the commander-in-chief, Zhaojian naturally did his part. After all, if you can be the commander who gives orders, who would be willing to be the soldier who executes the orders? It's a human being who has to climb up high. Master Zhaojian, hello, hello. Hearing Zhaojian's words, Mimura Hamaki suddenly stood up. He was worried about how to call Zhaojian. At this time, I heard that Zhaojian was the commander-in-chief sent by the village, and he immediately greeted him with enthusiasm. Are you Senior Hamanaki? Seeing Mimura Hamaki who stood up, Zhaojian also recognized him. Although Mimura Hamaki is not very famous in Hokage's original work, he is just a character like a passerby. But anyway, he is also an elite Jonin who has experienced World War II. So in Konoha village, he is actually a small famous person. Don't dare to be ideographic, comma. By the way, Lord Zhaojian, didn't the support team come with you? Hearing Zhaojian calling himself a senior, Hamaki Mimura waved his hand humbly, and then asked suspiciously. Since Zhaojian has become the commander-in-chief of the battlefield, he is now a subordinate of Zhaojian. Come here together. But after I sensed that you were in danger, I took the lead to speed up and come to support. Hearing Mimura Hamaki's question, Zhaojian replied with a smile. Come with the support team. Mimura Hamaki turned her head and looked in Konoha's direction, and her head became even more confused. He asked the sensing ninja to perceive it before, but the sensing ninja clearly said that there is no trace of the support team. Yes, but we didn't come from the direction of the village. We drove over from the battlefield of Sunagakure directly through the country of rain. Seeing Mimura Hamanaki's actions looking back, Zhaojian knew why he looked confused. So he directly said that Sunagakure was defeated, forced to sign a defeat agreement and so on. Of course, it's just a general content. Because there is no need to explain the process in detail with them. Nani, Sunagakure has been defeated. As soon as Zhaojian finished speaking, all the Konoha shinobi around him suddenly exclaimed. After all, everyone went out from Konoha at the same time. Moreover, this war broke out in less than half a month. Was this Sunagakure defeated? Is this too fast? Yes, Sunagakure has signed the defeat treaty. Zhaojian nodded and said with a smile. The Konoha shinobi who were confirmed again, all looked at each other. Zhaojian didn't look like he was joking at all. But this is too incredible, right? After the war broke out for more than 10 days, you have already decided the winner and defeated the opponent. This is something that has never happened since the village was founded. The support team has also arrived. When everyone was unbelievable, Zhaojian suddenly opened his mouth. So everyone followed his sight. I saw countless small black spots, rushing over quickly from the ground line on the right side of the battlefield. Papa papa papa. The sound of footsteps is getting closer. Not too long, all the support from the Sunagakure battlefield also reached the Konoha camp. Master Zhaojian, Master Zhaojian. After the team arrived, a group of Jonin, headed by Naruto, gathered. Before they were a few kilometers away, after seeing the mushroom cloud rising to the sky, they thought that Zhaojian might have encountered a powerful enemy. Because of that mushroom cloud, half is golden flame, half is orange flame. They naturally recognize the golden flame, because it is Zhaojian's ability. And the orange flame is undoubtedly the enemy powerhouse fighting Zhaojian. So they take it for granted that the two sides should be evenly matched. This also made them worry about Zhaojian in their hearts for a while. But at this moment, after seeing Zhaojian intact, all of them were also relieved. There were no accidents in the middle, right? Zhaojian first glanced at Kushina, then turned his head to the headed Luju and asked. It was very normal along the way, and no accidents happened. Hearing Zhaojian's question, Naruto seriously answered. Zhaojian handed over the team to him, so he was very careful along the way. That's okay. You go and arrange camp for the team first. Zhaojian nodded, and then gave orders to Jonin. After all, Konoha's trench could not accommodate more than 1,000 people, so he had to leave the camp again. Yes, Zu. After hearing Zhaojian's order, all Jonins in the support team took their orders and retreated. Only Kushina remained, and the original Jonins here. You all get back, and when the team is set up, we will have another frontline meeting. Looking at the remaining Jonins, Zhaojian also ordered. Yes, then we will clean the battlefield first. After hearing Zhaojian's words, Mimura Hamaki and other Jonin immediately entered the state. The border line of the country of Sichuan. A 5,000-man brigade is advancing quickly. They are Kurigakure, the only water country among the 5 great nations that has not yet participated in the war. What the hell does third-generation lord mean? Didn't we say that we are going to attack Sunagakure, which has a lower military power? This is about to reach the country of wind, why suddenly I have to wait to change my route to attack the country of fire? The watermelon puffer ghost running in front of the team turned to ask Yagura while running. The other 6 Ninja Sevens also turned their heads to look at Yagura. Because 3rd Mizukage had previously stated clearly that they would attack Sunagakure, which has a lower military power. But just as they were about to arrive in the Kingdom of Wind, Yagura suddenly arrived with 3rd Mizukage's latest order. And the order also asked them to change their routes and directly attack the country of fire. This makes them all very puzzled. After all, if they want to hit the country of fire, do they need to go so far? Isn't this a waste of our own military resources? I don't know, but I guess. Master 3rd Generation, I guess you wanted to catch Konoha by surprise, right? Yagura shook her head. After a while, Shanshan replied. In fact, after receiving the order of 3rd Generation 400 Mizukage, Yagura was also confused. But then he himself gave himself a reasonable reason. That is the real purpose of Master 3rd Generation, in fact, it may be to make a noise. When everyone thought that Kurigakure would go to attack Sunagakure, Konoha village also had the same idea. At that time, if they unexpectedly took a detour and attacked, it was very likely that they would hit Konoha by surprise. I see. This is indeed a cover-up strategy. But for this kind of thing, is it necessary even for the 7 ninja swordsmen to hide it? After hearing Yagura's explanation, Loquat Juzo nodded, and then said with a slightly displeased frown. The other 6 people have almost the same expressions. Although their single-player strength, only Jonin reaches the realm of elite Jonin. But when they merged with the 7 ninja swords, even the strong cage level would have to avoid the existence of 3 points. Therefore, the 7 of them also have their own pride. However, even they have to conceal such important information. This naturally made them feel very dissatisfied in their hearts. Maybe 3rd Generation Lord, he was a little more cautious. Seeing the 7 ninja swords all looking at him with questioning eyes, Yagura frowned and said leisurely. These guys usually rely on their own strength and domineering in Kurigakure, which has long made Yagura feel very dissatisfied. At this time, seeing them questioning 3rd Generation's order, Yagura's heart became even more indignant. In terms of personal strength, he can say that he crushed any one of the 7 of them. But when the 7 of them merged together, Yagura was no longer an opponent. After all, at this time, he has not yet become 3 Tails Jinchuriki. So the strength is only the elite Jonin. Because of this, although he was unhappy in his heart, he could only endure it silently at this time. When the Ninja 7 saw Yagura frowned, they knew that he was unhappy with himself and others, so they fell silent after looking at each other. However, what none of them knew was that at this time their 3rd Mizukage had been controlled by Uchiha Madara. The strategy of attacking Konoha village by detour was actually an order issued by Uchiha Madara. In the meeting room of the Hokage building, Makoto was lying on the table boringly, staring at the phone worm close at hand in a daze. Because the phone worm was given to her by Zhaojian, it was temporarily requisitioned by 3rd Generation. But 3rd Generation also gave her the right to answer the phone worm and gave her the answering management. Illustration: she hadn't received a call from Zhaojian for 3 days, and she seemed a bit listless at this time. After seeing Makoto's status, everyone in the conference room ignored it. Because this girl is obviously guilty of lovesickness. Brew, 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 brew. Just when Makoto was wandering around the world, the phone worm suddenly rang ACDA, which shocked her. But after recovering, the color of joy crawled on her cheek in an instant. Blue, blue, taste. Moses, Moses, is it Zhaojian-kun? The phone worm rang the second time, and Makoto immediately answered the call excitedly. Although every time the phone worm calls, she can only say hello to Zhaojian. But in her heart, she can also be happy for a while. The high-level people in the conference room immediately stopped their communication after hearing the voice of the phone bug. They all looked at Makoto and listened quietly. Makoto, it's me. Are the village leaders in the meeting room? Zhaojian controlled his voice and asked in a gentle voice. Because before, when everyone was raging and re-establishing Konoha positions. On a whim, Zhaojian took Kushina to do what the two loved to do. So Kushina was resting in their camp at the moment, and did not come to participate in this meeting. Without her, Zhaojian naturally had no worries. As for the Jonin in the conference room, Zhaojian ignored them. And he also believes that no one will be ignorant. Go and make a small report with Kushina. Yes, Zhaojian-kun, wait a moment. Hearing Zhaojian's voice was softer than before, Makoto seemed to have honey in his heart. The voice was also gentle. After responding to Zhaojian, she was a little bit reluctant, and passed the phone worm to third generation. Ahem. Seeing Makoto looking at him with a bit of resentment, Sarutobi Hiruzen suddenly coughed in embarrassment. Originally, Zhaojian's phone worm was talking to Makoto to solve their lovesickness. But he can't help it. This kind of communication tool is really important on the battlefield. He could only use his old face with a cheeky and temporarily requisition it. Zhaojian, the old man is here, what's the matter? After receiving the phone worm from Makoto, third generation said. We have arrived at the battlefield against rock shinobi from the Kingdom of Wind, so we will report to you. Seeing the phone worm imitating the appearance of third generation, Zhaojian also said straightforwardly. Nani, how can it be so fast? Zhaojian's voice fell, and other high-level voices suddenly sounded in the Hokage conference room. And Sarutobi Hiruzen's expression is also a little confused. Because according to the itinerary of Zhaojian and others, the support should arrive tomorrow. We borrowed directly from the country of rain, so we saved a lot of time halfway. Hearing some doubts, Zhaojian gave them a truthful explanation. What? Land of rain? Hanzo didn't find you? Sarutobi Hiruzen was shocked to hear that the army borrowed the way from the country of rain. Because this is a war period, if you step into another country at will, it is easy to cause conflicts between the two sides. I found it, and came out to stop it. But after Hanzo fought with me, he let us take the initiative. Seeing the phone worm imitating the expression of third generation, Zhaojian smiled and explained to the high-level people. Thinking of Hanzo's words that he wanted to survive 20 strokes under his hands, Zhaojian still had some teasing at this time. What? You had a fight with Hanzo? Hanzo took the initiative to give way to you. After Zhaojian had finished speaking, there was a burst of surprise in the Hokage building. The guy Hanzo is in the country of rain, but he is a dictator-like character. Is he so easy to talk? If he was so easy to talk about, the Kingdom of Rain would not be at war with the three big nations at the same time during World War II. Then what is your victory or defeat? Hearing that Hanzo took the initiative to give way did not arouse conflicts between the two sides. Sarutobi Hiruzen then raised his palm, suppressed the voice in the meeting room, and then asked Zhaojian with some doubts. Judging from Zhaojian's performance on the Sunagakure battlefield, his strength has undoubtedly reached cage level, and he is still a very strong cage level. And Hanzo is also a cage level strength, and has the title of ninja demigod. So third generation is naturally very curious about their victory and defeat. After hearing the questions asked by third generation, all the high levels in the Hokage building all pricked their ears and listened quietly. Because they are also curious about how strong Zhaojian is. And this question asked by third generation at this time can undoubtedly give them a general understanding of Zhaojian's strength. We didn't tell the winner. But that guy's strength is just average. Seeing the phone worm imitating the curiosity of third generation, Zhaojian also smiled and replied to everyone. If he had another fight with Hanzo at this time, Zhaojian, who had already controlled the teleportation, could completely crush Hanzo's actual strength. Hanzo's strength is average. Hear Zhaojian's words, the black line at the end of third generation. He didn't know if Zhaojian was too self-confident, or Hanzang deliberately hid himself in front of Zhaojian. Hanzo, who is known as the demigod of the ninja world, is just average in strength. Who can believe this? The other Konoha executives also looked at each other and were a little confused. Correct. There is one more thing to tell you. When I first arrived on the battlefield, I fought 2 Jinchuriki from Rock Shinobi. The other party's 4 Tails Jinchuriki has now been seriously injured and captured, and 5 Tails Jinchuriki was run away by him. Ignoring the emotions of third generation and others, Zhaojian spoke again and threw a blockbuster at them. Nani, have you played against Iwagakure? I also captured the other party's 4 Tails Jinchuriki Old Purple. Ha ha ha, this guy Oyemu, I guess he's going crazy. Zhaojian, I know that you called here specifically. It will definitely not be a simple matter of reporting that you have arrived on the battlefield. As soon as Zhaojian finished speaking, the Hokage building on the phone worm's side immediately exploded. All kinds of shocks and incredible exclamation sounds all passed from the phone bug to the frontline headquarters. After all, He captured the opponent's Jinchuriki. This value is really too great. This is not as simple as Ebizo who captured Sunagakure. Because of the importance of the tail beast to each village, there is no doubt that it exists. If during the post-war negotiations, the two sides broke down, or the other side was not satisfied with the bargaining chip given by the other side, then one can take four tails as one's own, and let the other's village lose a powerful war weapon. And if they want to get Jinchuriki back, they have to pay Konoha for the bleeding. As for how much compensation is needed, it depends on Konoha's mood. It can be said that Konoha village at this moment, already in the post-war negotiations, the party was in absolute advantage. Zhaojian, what is the specific situation? Sarutobi Hiruzen's face is also very pleasantly surprised. However, he tried to restrain himself and asked about the detailed process. It's like this. Hearing third generation's inquiry, Zhaojian also smiled and said Nemo. He rushed to the battlefield by himself and killed 300 rock shinobi with a big move. When he talked about how he had killed 6 well-known Iwagakure Jonin by himself, everyone in the Hokage building was already shocked and speechless. Finally, it was mentioned that he was facing 2 opponents Jinchuriki at the same time. And when he defeated 4 tails Laozi strongly, and frightened the 5 tails Han and fled. The entire meeting room of the Hokage building has already fallen into a situation where needles can be heard. It was only at this moment that the high-level villagers really had a general understanding of Zhaojian's strength. That is one of the few people in the ninja cage level that is truly the pinnacle. 0. It is estimated to be about the same level as Cloud Shinobi Village 3rd Raikage, or Iwagakure Onogi. Of course, this is only their own guess. Zhaojian's strength is only known to him. Just when Konoha had established a position and a meeting was going on. In the headquarters of the Iwagakure position, a post-war meeting was also being held. However, compared with Konoha's active atmosphere, Iwagakure fell into a deathly silence. In this battle they not only killed hundreds of people, but also killed 6 Jonin. More importantly, Laozi, who is 5 tails Jinchuriki, was captured by the opponent without knowing his life or death. This battle, for them with an army of 8,000, although the casualties were not small. But the high-end combat power was suddenly reduced by nearly half. Therefore, at this time, they have suffered heavy losses as an alternative. Master Han, what should we do now? Wenya asked Han with a bitter expression. 6 Jonin surrounded Zhaojian, but they were killed by the other 5. Only he escaped back alone. So at this time, Wenya's heart also felt sorrow. This is still because he responded promptly enough, and because Han and Laozi rushed to the battlefield, he could escape back. Otherwise, he is also a wisp of dead soul in the opponent's hand. Talent. Report. Just when Han didn't know how to answer Wenya, a long report suddenly came in from outside the headquarters. Then a rock shinobi, with a man in casual clothes, walked quickly into the command post. Report to Master Han, sirs. This person claims to be our Iwagakure intelligence officer. It is said that there is information brought out from Konoha village, and it needs to be reported to us. Rock Shinobi, who entered the command post, first saluted Han and the Rock Shinobi Jonin, then pointed to the man next to him and said, "Information from Konoha village. Let's talk about it. What kind of information is it?" Han glanced at the man first, and then waved his hand to beckon him to speak. In the previous battle, his armor was directly shattered by the shock wave of the explosion. So what he is wearing now is just an ordinary piece of clothing. Therefore, Han seemed to be much easier going than usual when he had his armor masked. Yes, after getting Han's permission, the man bowed and said directly to everyone. 3 days ago, Konoha was in the village suddenly, spreading the news. Said that Sunagakure has been defeated, and Muya signed the defeat treaty. Judging from the extent of their posting announcements and spreading them everywhere, the intelligence is very likely to be true. The expression of the intelligence personnel was very serious. However, when he just finished saying these words of intelligence, immediately, he was interrupted by the group of rock shinobi Jonin who had been silent. "Nani? Sunagakure is defeated, how is this possible?" "That's right, how long has the war broke out, how can Sunagakure be defeated so fast?" This is not the false information that Konoha deliberately spread to disturb the military spirit of all parties. In Rock Shinobi's command post, there was a voice of disbelief and surprise. After all, since the establishment of the 5 major villages, it seems that this kind of thing that ended the war in more than 10 days has never happened before. Therefore, at the first time, they naturally thought that Konoha had deliberately released false information that disturbed the military's minds of all parties. This matter is very likely to be true. While the Jonins were chattering about the truth and falsehood of the information, Han suddenly sighed and interrupted them. After hearing his words, the rest of Jonin all gathered their puzzled eyes. Baiyun Zhaojian, who fought with us on the battlefield before. He claimed to have come to support from the Kingdom of the Wind after defeating Sunagakure. Seeing everyone's puzzled eyes, Han sighed again, and then Yui explained. He naturally hoped that this matter was false information. But at this moment, it seems that this information is true. Nani, he came from the battlefield of the Kingdom of Wind. So, Sunagakure was really defeated. So that's the case, no wonder when we retreated before, a team of 1,000 people came from the left. So they are the Konoha team that came directly from the Sunagakure battlefield to support. Hearing Han's explanation, all Jonin contacted Zhaojian's direction when they came, and they all suddenly realized. But after confirming the news of Sand Shinobi's defeat, a heavier atmosphere gradually permeated the headquarters. Because Sunagakure surrendered at this moment, then the force Konoha was pinned down would be liberated. The other villages that are still fighting will naturally face Konoha's more combat power. Wait a moment, you mean, Baiyun Zhaojian has brought support here? Just when the command post fell into a solemn atmosphere, the intelligence personnel suddenly asked in confusion. Because he suddenly noticed that time seemed to be a little abnormal. What's wrong? Is there anything wrong? Seeing the intelligence personnel frowning, Huangtu also asked suspiciously. Well, it's something strange. Konoha announced that Sunagakure was defeated and surrendered 3 days ago. But at this time, the Konoha team that was supposed to be in the Kingdom of Wind has just arrived here. According to the battlefield where Konoha and Sunagakure are located, it will take about 3 days for them to come here. Does this seem a bit too coincidental? The intelligence ninja first bowed his head and meditated for a while, then looked up at the crowd and said. You mean, Konoha village announced the time of Sand Shinobi's surrender. It's the same time as the support team came to support from the Kingdom of Wind. After thinking about it for a little bit, Huangtu understood what the intelligence personnel were saying. How is this kind of thing possible? Could it be that Konoha has any way to instantly transmit information? After Huangtu finished speaking, there was another voice of doubt in the command center. Well, don't discuss each other's time for now, it's coincidence or not. Han knocked on the table and interrupted everyone somewhat off topic. Then he said to the intelligence personnel, is there any other information? It is said that Baiyun Zhaojian was the biggest contributor to Sunagakure's surrender. Seeing Han questioning himself, the intelligence personnel answered truthfully. Yes, is there any combat information about him? At this moment, Wen Ya, who was silent for a long time, suddenly looked at the intelligence personnel with hope. But after hearing what he said, the intelligence personnel shook his head. Konoha is the hero of this battle, so it is correct to announce it. But how is it possible that people will also publish the combat information of their own strong? Isn't this deliberately exposing the weakness of one's own strong? This kind of question doesn't need to be asked anymore. Because the guys are no longer able to find the flaws, they can have a way to deal with the defeated level. When Wenya regretted, Han sighed again. After all, Zhaojian's strength and speed are already too strong. Then how should we fight this war? Wenya felt bitter in his heart when he heard Han's words. And the other Jonins in the command center fell into solemn silence again. Tomorrow morning, the army will temporarily retreat back 30 miles. Then send the information about this battle back to the village, and let the village leaders decide. Han sighed and gave orders to everyone. At this time, he had no armor to defend him. If he was fighting against Zhaojian, he would not even be sure of his life. In the headquarters of Konoha position. After the meeting, Zhaojian announced that he would let the army trim for a day. Because after 3 days of continuous rushing, the reinforcements are very tired at this time. And the defenders who have been guarding here for several days, let alone. Not only are they physically tired, they are also very sleepy mentally. So in order for them to have a better state to fight. At this time, the army must be recharged and renewed. System, I want to draw a lottery. After the meeting ended, the sky had already entered the dark night. When Zhaojian returned to the camp where he and Kushina were staying, Kushina was still lying on the couch to rest. After taking off his robe, Zhaojian also lay down beside Kushina. When he sensed Zhaojian's return, Kushina arched into Zhaojian's arms. Open black lens bracket master, please choose the level of the lottery. Close black lens bracket. Premium lottery. Zhaojian uses thoughts to communicate with the system in his mind. In the previous battle with Rock Shinobi, back and forth. Add Rock Shinobi's panic value and the worship value of the Konoha people. At this time, Zhaojian's prestige value reserve has reached 122,000 points. So he can already do a high-level lottery again. Okay, master. Ding. After deducting 100,000 points of prestige, the balance is 22,009 points. Premium lottery draw, in progress. Congratulations to the master for obtaining Wukongshu purple real clone purple soul gem gold. Close black lens bracket. After the various sundries were extracted, 3 rewards with great colors appeared in Zhaojian's eyes. Nani, mind gem, isn't this one of the infinite gems in the Marvel universe? After the guaranteed bonus was drawn out, Zhaojian was shocked and stunned. This thing is one of the 6 singularities in the Marvel world. Naturally, its powerful ability is beyond doubt. It can not only enhance the user's mental strength and spiritual ability. It can also invade and control the thinking of others, and even transfer memories and illusions into the target brain. This is simply super illusion and control ability. Congratulations to the host. The host's luck is very good. Infinite gems are among the top prizes in the premium prize pool. Close black lens bracket. Feeling the excitement of Zhaojian, the system also celebrated in his mind. Ha ha ha. Zhaojian's heart was refreshed. Although this high-level lottery did not draw anything that directly enhances the attack power. However, his own strength tends to be more perfect. Because this wave of lottery not only solved his weakness in illusion, and also gained, dancing from the sky, the flying ability in this 7 Dragon Ball. Speed strength attack defense can be an illusion. Zhaojian at this time can even be said, become a true hexagonal warrior among the cage-level powerhouses. Excuse me, I would like to ask if you need to fuse mind gems, or use mind gems. Just after Zhaojian was excited for a while, the voice of the system asked questions in his mind. Is there any difference between fusion and use? Hearing the system's inquiry, Zhaojian also asked a little strangely. After the fusion, the soul gem will become the master's ability, but the real thing will disappear. Close black lens bracket. On the contrary, the master can also use the ability of the soul gem, and even lend it to others to use it, but it will then be an item of equipment. Close black lens bracket. I see. But well, let's merge it. After listening to the systematic explanation, Zhaojian suddenly realized. But after thinking about it for a while, he still decided to choose fusion. Because the power of the soul gem is too powerful, I will not lend it to others. Ding. Mind gems are being merged. The time for complete fusion, 10 hours. After Zhaojian made his choice, the card showing the soul gem flew into his head. In Zhaojian's invisible head, bursts of faint brilliance began to glow from his brain. As the fusion completed in 10 hours. After Zhaojian nodded, he looked at the other 2 purple cards. He knew Wukongshu naturally, so he merged directly without hesitation. Because this air dance is a skill type item, so it is melted immediately, Zhaojian immediately comprehended the skill of flying. System, what is this real clone? After moving his gaze to the last card, Zhaojian asked suspiciously. Since this card is also a reward of the purple grade, he estimated that it should also be a good thing. But he has never heard of this skill. It's like a clone, one of the abilities of Meliodas in the world of the 7 deadly sins. Similar to the shadow clone technique in this world. But the difference is that the real clone will not disappear when it is hurt, unless it is fatally hurt. Furthermore, it looks like an avatar, only 4 avatars can be separated at most. In the case of a clone of 400, the clone will have half the strength of the owner. In the case of 2 clones, the clones will have a quarter of the master's strength. Close black lens bracket. And when there are 4 clones, the strength of each clone will drop sharply again, only 1/8 of the master's strength. Close black lens bracket. I see. In other words, as long as one's strength is stronger, the clone's strength is also stronger. After listening carefully to the introduction of the chase system, Zhaojian was speechless. Unexpectedly, this is actually a growing shadow clone technique. But the difference is that he does not have chakra restrictions, and he will not disappear because chakra is exhausted or injured. Yes, the strength of the clone, in view of the strength of the main body. Close black lens bracket. Then fuse. Anyway, don't press down on your skills. After understanding the characteristics of this skill, Zhaojian told the system. Estimating based on your own strength at this time, if you only split one clone, then the strength of the clone is at least as good as that of the elite Jonin. A clone of the elite Jonin's strength can also do many things on his behalf. Ding! We are fusing the real clone. Ding! The real image clones have been merged. Close black lens bracket. In degrading eyes, Zhaojian once again took control of a purple skill. Early the next morning, Zhaojian woke up leisurely, feeling a little itching in his nose. After opening her eyes, she realized that Kushina was smiling, holding a strand of hair and tickling her face. You fellow, you are really getting more and more presumptuous. Look at how I should clean up today. Zhaojian stayed upstairs in Kushina, in her exclamation. With a move, the hungry tiger pounced on its food and instantly stood up. Between the knots of both hands, when he was about to open the barrier, he suddenly felt that someone was rushing to his camp. Without any choice, Zhaojian can only sigh and give up. I temporarily let go of the proud Kushina. Master Zhaojian, are you awake? The support team from the village has arrived at the position. As Zhaojian got up and put on his clothes, the call of people also sounded outside the tent. Because I know why Zhaojian and Kushina live together. So the visitor was also very acquainted, and stopped 10 meters away. I see, I'll be here soon. After answering the call, Zhaojian increased the speed of dressing. When Kushina heard that people were coming from the village, she immediately got up and got up. The village leaders said before that they would give Zhaojian, the greatest contributor to Iwagakure, a special honor. Therefore, Kushina is also very curious, what kind of honor the village will give Zhaojian. After all, Zhaojian is his man at this time. Therefore, she is naturally very concerned about Zhaojian. In front of the gate of Konoha camp, all the Jonin commanders gathered here. And right in front of them, a team of about 1,000 people was also neatly lined up here. They are another team that came to support from Konoha village. In fact, there are 2 other teams of this 1,000-man brigade. They were also dispatched to the battlefields of Cloud Shinobi Village and Kurigakure respectively. In order to make up these 3,000 support teams, it took a few days for the high-level villagers to assemble all the ninjas who were performing their missions. Only then barely managed to get out of these 3,000-person teams. In the Konoha village at this time, it can even be said that, except for the Uchiha clan and a few Anbu roots, all other ninjas above Chunin were dispatched to the battlefield. Since then, Konoha has 9,000 people thrown into the war. The vitality in the village can be said to have been directly hollowed out. What the hell is going on in that big pit in the battlefield? Suspicious voice. Could it be that a meteorite fell to the ground and was smashed out of the hole? Guest voice. What kind of meteorite fell to the ground? That was the destruction of the battle during the battle between Lord Zhaojian and Iwagakure Jinchuriki yesterday. Don't say you just saw it. Even when we see it now, we still feel that our heart is shaking. Yes, the scene of the Big Bang yesterday, I guess I won't forget it for the rest of my life. Ha ha ha, I just wanted to say this, I was preempted by you. You came late and didn't see the scene yesterday. It's simply a great regret in your life. The mushroom cloud exploded, but it broke through the clouds directly. Nani, is this the destruction caused by the battle? This is too exaggerated, right? That's right, even if you are a cage-level expert, you shouldn't be so exaggerated, right? Hey, stop talking, Lord Zhaojian is already here. Both Zhaojian and Kushina had not yet approached the gate of Konoha position. A burst of exclamation and exclamation from the Konoha shinobi practitioners came into their ears. And what they discussed in the heat, undoubtedly all revolved around Zhaojian yesterday's battle. Master Zhaojian, Master Zhaojian. Zhaojian walked to the gate of the position. Everyone including the ninja who had just arrived from the village, all shouted in excitement. Although Zhaojian was only about 18 years old at this time. But the height of his strength has been beyond the reach of everyone in his entire life. So naturally no one calls Zhaojian as an elder or a senior based on age. But all are very respectful, using the honorific title of an adult for Zhaojian. Everyone has worked hard. Zhaojian raised his hand and suppressed the emotional crowd. It may be because of the strong strength, so at this time Zhaojian's body naturally exudes the unique aura of the strong. In terms of temperament, he also appeared to stand out from the crowd before the army of thousands of people. After suppressing the cheers of the crowd, Zhaojian discovered that there was still a high-level villager in the team coming from Konoha to support. That is the village consultant, Mitokado Homura. Behind Mitokado Homura, Aburame Jiwei and Hyuga Hazashi, etc., came to support Jonin. Zhaojian, you are really young and promising, and the future generations are terrifying. Just when Zhaojian was about to step forward to greet Mitokado Homura, he took the lead in walking towards Zhaojian. Moreover, he grabbed Zhaojian's hand, which was a warm compliment. Ah, Mito-sama, too much reputation. Zhaojian responded politely, and then secretly pulled his hands out. Anyone who is holding his hands by an unfamiliar old man will feel a little uncomfortable. You are too modest. Konoha village has your kind of epigenetic existence. We old guys, we can live a lot of peace. Mitokado Homura laughed loudly and praised Zhaojian again. Although he was suspected of flattering, Zhaojian responded. Let's go, Mito-sama, let's talk more at the Advanced Command Center. Although Zhaojian had no feelings for Mitokado Homura, the so-called not to hit the smiley with his hands. Mitokado Homura was so polite to him, Zhaojian naturally could not leave others in the cold. So I was very enthusiastic and prepared to welcome Mitokado Homura into the battlefield. No. My old bones are here this time, mainly to give you honors on behalf of the village. After sending it, I have to go back to the village and resume my life, so I won't enter the battlefield. Seeing Zhaojian greeting himself enthusiastically, Mitokado Homura also smiled and declined. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.